Come on, Annie. Let's go to the movies.
This is the Cinereelists, episode 499. My name is Kyle.
My name is James.
And my name is Zach.
And we're here to talk about movies, movie lists, and movie obsession for the next hour or so. Guys, I'm going to skip the normal witty banter because we have potentially 150 unique movies to discuss this week.
Right.
I know everyone checks in. They want like that great back and forth tete-a-tete conversation we have at the beginning, but we got to just get rid of it this episode.
I'm in agreement.
Personally, I'm going to find this episode a success if there's one movie that appears on two lists.
That would be amazing.
That's on my bingo card.
Like as far as like the 50 that we're talking about, not necessarily
Yes.
like the total list of 500.
Agreed.
Right? Yeah.
Can we say this is the most movies so far yet in history, thusly, that Cinereelists has discussed in one episode?
Yes, I would say that.
Most likely. I mean, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, in this episode, it'll be roughly 150 movies that we talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we've done more than that in one episode. Before we jump into it, let's go quickly through some housekeeping. Don't forget, there's a video version of this podcast on YouTube. Go to YouTube, search Cinereelists, find us there. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Cinereelists. Help the podcast out, get extra after show audio, leave us an Apple Podcast review. You could also send us an email to heyguys@cinereelists.com and we will discuss it on the podcast. We got a couple emails from listeners this week, specifically about our top 500 list that we will talk about on episode 501 because there's just too many movies to talk about between now and then. So if you have specific thoughts about episode 500 or a top 500 list or the absurdity of a top 500 list, heyguys@cinereelists.com. That's it for housekeeping this week. But I think we need to go into one more thing before we jump into the list for this week. Zach, what's going on?
Yeah, we have a special guest
Nice.
to join us on the show. Not for the whole show. I think it's going to be a pop-in.
Okay.
But we have a special guest. My mom is here at Cinereelists headquarters. Mom, why don't you come on?
Which is a rarity.
Mom, how's it going?
It's going great. Hi, James.
Hi, how's it going?
Hi, Kyle.
Hi,
It's going
Kathy.
great. Yeah, hi, Kyle.
It's great to see you.
Kyle, I've known you just a few hours less than Zach has.
That's very true.
What does that mean? The day you guys met, Kyle
Well,
met
Zach
your mom?
met Kyle first at school,
Okay.
and I wasn't there at the moment.
Right. And then after school that same day, Zach was like, "This is my new friend, Mom." Like introduced him.
This is my new best friend, and we're going to be friends forever.
I'm sure you have a better memory of that like first year of knowing each other than we do.
Well, it's been very special.
Well, since we have
And
you on the
everybody,
microphone and I'm kind of the odd man out in at least this foursome, I would say, what's like the craziest thing these two got up to that we wouldn't know about? Like, was there a specific moment where they got into trouble together and you were like, I can't believe these two did that? Anything like that?
Oh, I wouldn't call anything they did trouble. I think they just had so much fun together. You know,
Okay.
they just, especially filming things and playing games and, just laughing. Had a great time.
Did they ever fight? Come on, I'm digging for dirt here. Did they ever fight or was there ever a moment where you're like, well, I guess
I
Kyle and
can't
Zach.
talk about that.
I
Nope.
don't think there's anything to talk about.
No, see, my memory's gone on that point. Sorry, James.
Zach and I have never had a fight in our 30-year friendship.
Oh, well, that's certainly not true.
Never disagreements.
That's awesome. Well, welcome to the podcast, Kathy.
Thank you. It's fun to be here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this actually is not your first appearance on this podcast. This is your
That's what I
second
was telling her.
appearance.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
Was it?
I was sort of bamboozled into being pre-recorded when James met me at Zach and Julie's wedding. And
Yep.
I was interviewed on a specific topic
Yeah, because Zach
as a surprise
claims
for Zach. Yeah.
Zach claims he was not allowed to watch Bambi when he was a kid, and I wanted the truth on that. So at Zach's wedding,
Well,
I cornered
I have
Kathy.
yeah. I have to say, though, that he did get to watch part of it, but I jumped in front of the TV so he wouldn't see the part about the parent dying. That would have been too sad.
Kathy, I have a
Spoiler
confession to
alerts
make.
for those who have not seen Bambi.
But on that last time you interviewed me, he now has permission to watch Bambi.
And yet he hasn't, which is crazy.
No, I've since watched it and talked about it on the show.
Oh, really? I don't remember
Yeah.
that.
Well, Kyle, what's your confession?
So, Kathy, Zach used to come over and watch Bambi at our house all the time. He'd be like, "Hey, can I come over and can we watch Bambi?" He'd like be really whispering
I knew
about
there
it.
was a funny demeanor after he got back from your house.
Yeah.
That must have been it.
That's why.
He used to do all the dishes and, take out the garbage. Penance, I guess.
Yeah, he had a really guilty conscience every time we hung out and watched Bambi.
Okay, so my mom is a listener of the show.
Oh, yes.
And so I had a couple questions for you. Are there any episodes in particular that stand out in your memory the most?
I really like all the episodes. They're all unique and they have many special moments. But for some reason, there is just one episode that just tickles my fancy and it goes through my mind and I just remember it. So it happened on July 26, 2017, just a few days after Zach's birthday. And it's episode 287. And sorry, Kyle, this is before you came on, but it was when James and Zach discussed the movie Dunkirk.
Okay. Yeah.
I just laugh and I chuckle the way you two went on. James was talking about how that movie was an experience
And not a movie.
and not a movie.
A roller coaster
A
ride.
roller coaster ride.
And you use these words like nitpicking, and Zach was saying you have a reason to care, and James was saying no, there's no reason to care, and I'm defending it the way you're attacking it, and it was just memorable for me, and I saw the movie too, and I can see where James is coming from, that it's quite the experience, and of course I would always see the way Zach was talking about the movie, that you're motivated on the human stories, and it was very meaningful. So yeah, that one really sticks out.
Nice.
Do you know
So
James has since bought me Dunkirk on Blu-ray as a present?
Oh, good. You
Yeah,
deserved it.
I doubt it'll be as good the second time, but I did buy it for you.
Especially on just Blu-ray. That's all.
Well, it characterizes your podcast to the T because you have this intense discussion, each of you having these opinions, and you'll fight it to the end. But you're respectful and you're kind, and it's such a fun experience to listen to two people disagree in a friendly way.
Sure.
And
Well, we cut out all the vicious stuff, the real vicious stuff. So.
Yeah, when I start swearing and all that stuff. Yeah.
what?
No.
Oh yeah, Kathy, if you could
That's a
imagine
joke.
the mouth on Zach in this podcast, the amount of editing Zach or James has to do to clean it up is staggering.
Or sure.
All right. So, Mom, that was the most memorable episode. Is there one that you enjoyed the most?
Yes. This is when James and Kyle and Zach play these games. They are wonderful, especially the ones where James will make up all the questions and then Kyle will make up all the questions and then Zach will do it. So, talking about different segments here. But it's just so unique and creative, and it's so fun. And you learn a lot, and it's amazing how much you can recall. I am just amazed at your memories. And I know sometimes you go blank and you can't remember things, but it's just such a fun thing. The three of you together just playing these games, and it kind of, summarizes your whole experience on this podcast in a way where you can make movies fun.
Sure. I've always wondered how it would, what is it? What am I trying to ask? I think it'd be cool if my son had a podcast so that on a weekly basis, I could just listen to him talk to one of his friends. I don't know what that conversation would be or what it sounds like. What's the experience of listening to Zach on a week-to-week basis and just hearing him have a 2-hour conversation with somebody? Because not every parent gets that, right?
Right. No, it's wonderful. If I ever miss him, I just turn on the podcast.
That's sweet.
It's great.
No reason to talk to him.
Yeah. Exactly. We don't need to talk. I'm all caught up. I know what's going on in your life. We don't need to catch up.
Yeah. That's great. Well, Mom, thank you for popping in. I know you do not want to sit through the entire episode. You want to listen to it in your own time, not live.
Yeah, I'll enjoy it at another time. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us, Kathy. It's always fun to meet a listener.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm a fan of the Cinereelists.
You're the best.
All right. Thanks, Mom.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good seeing you. Bye.
Thank you.
That was great.
That was great.
That was awesome.
And a plug, if people want to check out the YouTube, you can see my mom and I's matching shirts.
I was not going to mention that, Zach. I wasn't going to mention it.
I
but
liked it.
Since
I thought
you
it was
did.
fun. Yeah.
And that was on purpose, right? You guys coordinated on purpose?
Nope.
Sure it wasn't. No more shenanigans. Let's jump into it. All right. This is a big episode. We do these episodes once every approximately 2 years. 8 weeks, 4 weeks past every 2 years or so. And it's one of our top 100 episodes. And we kind of, Zach, explain how we got to what we're going to talk about this week.
Oh, sure. Okay. So this is way back in the history of Cinereelists. When we hit our 100th episode, we thought we need to, mark the occasion by creating our personal top 100 favorite films list. So both James and I created our top 100 favorite films list. And we spent 2 episodes, 99 and 100, talking about our 100 favorite films. If you want to go back and listen to that episode, you're going to hear the films we feel the most passionate about. It's a great episode to listen to. Some more time passed and we hit episode 200. So what are we going to talk about? Well, let's make our top 200 favorite films of all time. Now, we've already talked about our top 100. So we're only going to talk about our 101 to 200. Right? We're going to add on to the list. Well, now it's our 500th episode coming up. And so we've already talked about our top 400. You can go back to episode, 99, 100, 199, 200, 299, 300, and 399, 400, and hear our top 400 favorite movies of all time. And now we're going to add 100 more to get our top 500. So this episode, we will be covering our 500th favorite film to our 451st favorite films of all time. And the next episode on our 500th episode will be our 450th favorite film to our 401st favorite film of all time. Trust me, the math works out, and it should be a good time.
And we're going to move fast because there's potentially 150 movies we're going to talk about in the next, hopefully, 2.5 hours, something like that.
I'm going to move slow. You guys are worried about time. I think this is going to be a relatively short episode. So I'm going to leisurely talk about my films.
Good luck.
I only prepared 500 words for each movie this week. So I really cut myself down.
That'd be amazing if you wrote a blurb for every movie.
That would be
I hope you did.
Intense for sure. Let's jump into it. Top 500 to top 451. Why don't I go first? My number 50 is Creed from 2015. This is the Rocky reboot, sort of, kind of spin-off reboot, maybe. It stars who does it star? It stars Michael B. Jordan. It's directed by Ryan Coogler. It's great. It has a little touch of Rocky in that Sylvester Stallone's in it, but it's definitely not his movie. It's a great passing the torch movie that I really enjoyed. A little disappointed with the second one, but the first one is still awesome, and that makes it my 500th favorite movie. I should also say, according to Letterboxd, I've seen over 4,000 movies. So you might think counting down for 500 is ridiculous, but these are still, like, percentage-wise, top 20% movies for me. And
no,
so
these are James, these are like top 12% movies for you.
Top 12%. They're very high compared to all of the movies I've seen. So take that for what it's worth. Go check out Creed if you haven't done it yet and you're into boxing.
James, this might be hard to believe, but Creed was actually on my short list that just didn't make the cut. But it was one I was considering.
I will never believe that.
All right, I'll go next. My number 500 is from 2016. It is Lion. This is a film by Garth Davis. It stars Dave Patel and Nicole Kidman and Rooney Mara. And it's a story in kind of two parts. It's based on a true story. It's about a 5-year-old boy who falls asleep on a train in India. And when he wakes up, he's in a town he doesn't recognize, but he's 5 and he doesn't know where he lives or how to explain to people who he is. And so he's just at that point completely lost from his family, and he gets adopted by a family in Australia. So the first half is about the kid's story, and the second half is about him grown up, trying to retrace his steps and figure out who his real family is. And I find this movie to be really well done, very heartfelt, very touching, well acted, especially for the kid actor. And I liked it a lot. So it's my number 500 favorite film of all time.
When the kid is learning English, he pronounces pepper. He's like an Indian and Indian Australian accent, and we still call pepper Peppa in our house because of that movie. This is cute.
Great.
It's cute. All right. So I haven't seen as many movies as you guys. I've seen over 2,000 movies. So we're talking top 500 is like top 20% of my movies, which are still movies I like, but I'm not as passionate about my top, 20% as I am my top 100. So these are movies I definitely like, but I didn't spend days numbering them perfectly. So it's more of
Sure.
These are the movies I like kind of list.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Definitely spent some time ranking them, but I wasn't, going is this 498 or 499 compared to doing a top 100.
Sure.
So my number 500 is The Wild Bunch from 1969. This is a Western directed by Sam Peckinpah, and it is, you call it a late period Western, where it still takes place in the 19th century, but definitely getting towards the end of the 19th century. Kind of your standard Western era. It is about a group of aging outlaws who try to pull off one last score in Mexico, or I guess in Mexican territory. Things go wrong, and they have to hole up in I believe an old missionary, and have a very violent shootout to try and make their way out of this debacle that they're in. It stars Ernest Borgnine, amongst other people. If you want to see a younger Ernest Borgnine, you can check this out. And it is a surprisingly violent and gun-heavy Western movie. Westerns obviously have guns and have violence in them, but this one really lays into that final battle, and it is it's a cool Western to see.
My number
For sure.
My number 499 is from 1971. It's Steven Spielberg's first movie. Technically a TV movie, but it has played in theaters since then. It's called Duel. It's about a giant big rig 18-wheeler who chases down a guy in another car, and it's great. I enjoy it. $4.99.
Nice. Well, my $4.99 is Enter the Dragon from 1973. This is the only Bruce Lee film that I've ever seen, and I must have picked a good one because this one is a lot of fun. It's about a secret agent that goes to a island fortress of a drug dealer for a martial arts tournament and to spy. But it's just, there's a lot of really great set pieces. It's really fun to watch Bruce Lee do his thing, and I like Enter the Dragon a ton. So my number 499.
That's a really good Bruce Lee entry movie.
Good.
My number 499 is True Romance from 1993, directed by Tony Scott. This is starring Christian Slater and Patricia Arquette. I'm pretty sure this is also written by Quentin Tarantino, but not directed. In this movie, Christian Slater plays I guess you can call it a criminal, and he steals from a pimp played by Brad Pitt. He tries to sell, I believe it's drugs he's trying to sell. It all takes place in sort of the seedy side of Hollywood. Patricia Arquette plays a sex worker that he marries, and it's a fun and kind of dark crime drama in that Tarantino style. Even though he didn't direct it, it still has his dialogue and kind of his cast of characters involved. So I would say if you like Tarantino but haven't checked this one out, check it out.
Love that movie. Episode 4, sorry. My number 498 is Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, which is the sequel to Wrath of Khan, which was higher on my list. But I enjoy this sequel. It's the, finishing of the story that part 2 created. And I enjoy the original Star Trek movies quite a bit. The first one is a little brutal, but Wrath of Khan, it really picks up, and pretty much all of them that they made with the original cast I enjoy. And that's why this one lands at 498.
I have all the Star Trek movies, but I haven't watched them all yet. I need to go through them because I think that'd be a fun time.
I do agree. I think it would be a fun time.
Have you done that? Have you seen them all in relative proximity?
I have never watched them back to back to back to back. No.
Okay.
I never binged them.
Yeah.
But I should.
My 498 is from 1953. It's The Wages of Fear. And this is just a great kind of thriller. It's a black and white film. It's a thriller. It takes place in South America, and these men have to transport nitroglycerin across this really rocky, cavernous terrain. And so the whole time they're trying to do it so that they don't bump the nitroglycerin and blow themselves up. And I just think it's a great plot, and it's a really good execution because the pacing really makes you tense. This was remade as Sorcerer, which is the movie that opened up at the same time as Star Wars. So it's kind of a forgotten film just because it had to compete with Star Wars. But this is the original, and The Wages of Fear, I think, is definitely worth the watch.
Sorcerer, also worth checking out. I say they're equally as good movies.
I agree about Sorcerer. Checking that out.
My 498 is another Western from 1985. This is Silverado, directed by Lawrence Kasdan, who's famous for writing Return of the Jedi. I believe he also wrote some other Star Wars movies. This is about 4 cowboys slash rangers slash lawmen whose passes cross as they're all trying to travel to Silverado, and they each kind of have their own separate story as well as one unified one. It has a great cast. You got Kevin Kline, Scott Glenn, Danny Glover, and Kevin Costner are all in this movie. It is one of my favorite Kevin Costner performances because he's not quite a star yet. He's still being a character actor, and he's just playing a role that you're not used to seeing him play. So definitely another cool Western to check out.
Haven't seen that one. My episode. Why did I do that again? My number.
I hope you do this for every.
It's so
every
close
movie.
to the episode that we're currently in.
Yes, it is.
Whenever I see a number, it makes it feel like an episode. My number 497 is The Monster Squad from 1987. It's not a kids movie, but maybe if you have a teenager, 10, 11, 12, I think that's maybe the sweet spot for, considering showing them this movie. It's about a bunch of kids who it's near Halloween, and the Universal monsters, the classic Universal monsters, kind of break free from I forget where and go out into their community. And then these kids have to round up all these different Universal monsters, some of which are legitimately bad, and some of them turn out to be kind of, workable by these kids. And it's just a fun, goofy 80s time. There's definitely some humor in it that would not fly today, and I think 1 or 2 use of the 3-letter F word. And so you might want to be on hand to talk young people through those elements of it. But it's a movie from my childhood that I enjoyed then, and I haven't seen in a long time. Not sure if it'll hold up, but regardless, in my mind, right now, it's number 497.
Nice. Well, my 497 is How Green Was My Valley from 1941. This is a John Ford film starring Maureen O'Hara, and it's kind of a slow tale about a Welsh mining village and a family that lives there. There's a minister and everyone, and some of the sons work in the mine, and it's kind of unsafe in the mine. Anyways, I find this movie to be incredibly easygoing, right? This is a kind of a comfort movie to watch. You pop it on, you just kind of feel good watching it. I really like this movie a lot, and how green was my valley? And the answer is green.
Quite.
Yeah, spoiler alert. It was quite green.
Well, if I say how green, you can't just say green. I need a level of green.
You do.
My number 497 is a 2021 film. This is Nobody, starring Bob Odenkirk. This is kind of his riff on the John Wick style story, where Bob Odenkirk plays an everyday nobody who then gets drawn into his past life of crime and danger and action and fighting. And it's sort of a dark comedic take, somewhat sadistic take on that John Wick style movie, but a lot of fun.
My number 496 is the horror classic, psychological horror classic, The Silence of the Lambs. Sure, other people would have this much higher. I enjoy the movie. Again, top 12%. But, it's not one that I feel like I can rewatch over and over. But it is a great Jonathan Demme film with at least two great performances in it, in Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins. And the guy who plays Wild Bill, is that what his name is? Crazy Bill, something like that. He's good too, but, overshadowed by those other two performances. My number 496.
Cool. My 496 is They Live from 1988. It's a John Carpenter film starring Roddy Piper. And this movie is just so unique that it has stood out to me so clearly. It's it's about this guy who I think he gets special glasses, and the glasses enable him to see that aliens have infiltrated humanity, and they pretend to be like us, and to everyone else they look like us. But if you look at them through these special glasses, you realize the ghouls that they are. And the whole thing is like one big messy satire with some pretty amazing cheesy fight scenes, and it's just a unique bird, and I really enjoy it. So They Live, my 496.
There's like an 8-minute long alley fight between Roddy Piper and Keith David that just does not end.
It does not end, and it's amazing.
It's great. My number 496 is a 2019 movie, Long Shot. This is starring Charlize Theron, Seth Rogen. Charlize Theron is playing a woman running for president. I believe she's Secretary of State or in some high cabinet position. And Seth Rogen is her childhood friend / crush, his crush on her, that gets hired as kind of her punch-up guy for her speeches. And it is both a sort of a bit of a political satire, also comedy with romantic themes. And this movie surprised me. Obviously, it's no surprise that I have a affinity for Charlize Theron, so we're not going to hide that. But I was skeptical going into this movie, and I found it to be surprisingly funny and heartfelt, and better than it should have been.
It's a good way to describe movies. Better than it should have been. For sure. My number 495 is Glengarry Glen Ross, which absolutely feels like it should be higher, but for some reason it landed right here in the 495 slot, written by David Mamet, with just it's like a stage play filmed, but in the best kind of ways, with big performances, specifically from Alec Baldwin. And it's a memorable movie that I've only seen once, I think. Maybe twice I've seen it in my lifetime, but it's a good one. Glengarry Glen Ross, 495.
Okay, my 495 is Under the Skin. And I would talk about it, but I've already talked about it because it used to be in my top 400. It's just dropped since then. So instead, I'm going to talk about the movie that bumped it. It's my new 391, and it's called Late Spring.
I've heard of this.
You've heard of this?
Yeah.
Okay. So Late Spring is from 1949. It's directed by Ozu, and it's a different type of film that I think Western filmmakers are used to seeing. Okay, it's a very Japanese film, and the pace is very steady and slow. But if you embrace this film, I think it is so beautiful. It tells the story of a young girl who's marrying, but she's worried about her widowed father. And so there's a lot of like relationship dynamics, but in that culture, you can't just come out and say things right, on their face. And so it's a lot of little steps towards making sure everyone's okay with what's about to change in their lives. And it's shot so beautifully. It's acted so well. I really enjoyed Late Spring. If you want to see, what was happening in film in Japan in the 40s, this is an absolute great one to watch. Tokyo Story would be another one, but Late Spring is very good. So that has taken Under the Skin, bumped it way down because it is now my 391.
Zach, this is a list movie. I'm definitely aware of it. Knowing which list movies I like and I don't like, would I like this movie?
So you have liked Japanese films in the past.
Yeah, I like Tokyo Story.
Okay. If you like Tokyo Story, then you'll like this one.
Okay.
I like this. Yeah. So, yeah, I think you'll like it just the same. This one I feel is more approachable than Tokyo Story.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah.
Then I will make an effort to see it then.
Okay.
My number 495 is a 2006 film, The Last King of Scotland. This is starring James McAvoy and Forrest Whitaker. I believe this is the first James McAvoy movie I remember recognizing him specifically as an actor. Compared to just being like a background character, but I'm sure he was in things before this. James McAvoy plays a Scottish doctor who travels to Uganda just as Idi Amin is coming into power, and he becomes the personal doctor to Idi Amin. And it's a movie about a guy who is like befriends a tyrant and hears all these terrible things about him and doesn't believe them because he's friends with this guy. He's like, oh, he's wonderful. This can't be true. Or, there's supposed to be justification for this until he himself then experiences those same atrocities. Do we know, is this a true story or based on a true story, or is this complete fiction, as in the James McAvoy character? I was not sure on that.
I don't know.
My gut tells me that is the fictionalized part of an otherwise true story.
Yeah, definitely Idi Amin and what he was doing in Uganda is true. So it's a great Forrest Whitaker performance, though.
I like that movie as well. My number 494 is from 1996. It's The Ghost in the Darkness, which is based on a true story. And it stars Val Kilmer and Michael Douglas, and they're building a train out in the middle of the desert in Africa, I believe. And these two lions are like hunting them and the workers they have there working on the railroad. And
they're man-eaters.
They're man-eaters. Yeah, it's got an awesome poster. The movie's probably a little uneven for most people, but I enjoy it and rewatch it. I wouldn't say often, but I've probably seen it 3 or 4 times in my life, which is probably more than the movie deserves. But I like it quite a bit, and that's why it lands at 494.
That's awesome. Well, my 494 is a documentary from 2002, and I don't think this is an approved documentary. I think it was kind of created, buried, and leaked. It's called The Sweatbox. And this tells the story of the making of The Emperor's New Groove, which is a 2000 Disney film that had quite the turbulent production. And it focuses kind of on the Sting's role in it. But it's just so fascinating to watch. I think it's a really, really fun documentary, and definitely a glimpse inside of just how messy this production was. And I really enjoyed it quite a bit. So The Sweatbox, if you can find it, I recommend checking it out.
Yeah, that's good. My number 494 is a 2016 film called Jackie. This is starring Natalie Portman as Jacqueline Kennedy, and this is about the events surrounding JFK's assassination. Not the conspiracy aspect of it, but how Jacqueline Kennedy responded to that event in her life, that tragedy, and kind of sort of where she was leading up to that space also. It is a very unique but strong performance from Natalie Portman. And also, this is not a straightforward movie in the sense that it's not telling things like moment by moment. It kind of jumps around in time and has a bit of an artistic direction to it. So it's a unique period piece and a unique snapshot of history.
I really need to rewatch that one. I enjoyed it the first time. I own it on Blu-ray, but I have not popped it in yet, but I need to. I remember it being like a really strong central performance.
Yes, I mean, she definitely carries the movie.
My number 493 is the mid-90s classic slasher movie, Scream, which is great. I think people had assumed Wes Craven would get one franchise out of his horror career. Nope, he got two. And I really enjoy the subversive nature of the movie. Kind of at the time turned all the slasher cliches on their head, and it's a little bit of a dark comedy as well. I don't know. The movie really worked for me. It worked for just about everybody else, which is why they made 4 of them going on 5. And none of the sequels quite match up to Scream for me. So this is as high as it goes on my list. Number 493.
I might rewatch that. I think I like that film. That could be a fun rewatch. I think it'll feel like a time capsule for sure.
Absolutely. Like if you look at the cast list, it's a list of people you don't hear about anymore.
I would say Matthew Lillard is still around, but like Nev Campbell, who's heard of?
Well, Drew Barrymore has her own daytime talk show. She's probably making more money now than she's ever made in her life in syndication, which is crazy to me.
But she was not a cameo. She was a bit of a stunt cast in that movie.
I'm just saying she was super famous when this came out. Yep. But she's making more money now, and you never hear about her. Well, being a daytime talk show host.
Inflation, James.
I heard about her today. I saw a clip of her on Twitter today.
Sure.
Okay. Let's see. My number 493 is from 2016. It's called Nocturnal Animals. Have either of you seen Nocturnal Animals?
Absolutely.
No, I've not.
This movie, man, it's directed by Tom Ford. It stars Amy Adams and Michael Shannon and Jake Gyllenhaal. And this movie is intense. I am not going to go too far into the plot because the plot is really, really interesting. But I will say that Amy Adams plays like a gallery owner, and her ex-husband writes a novel. And in the novel, there's a character that she thinks is her who's like violently killed. And she's scared about this, and then the plot goes from there. It's an intense movie. There's lots of trigger warnings, involved with it. But if you're in for something that's really well acted and very dramatic, I would definitely recommend Nocturnal Animals. It's definitely rated R, but it was good.
Kyle, you should see it. It feels very Fincher-esque to me.
Okay.
Would you agree with that, Zach?
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely.
That's a good selling point. My number 493 is a 2013 movie. This is The Dallas Buyers Club, starring Matthew McConaughey, Jared Leto, Jennifer Gardner, and other people. This movie takes place in the 80s. It is based on a true story. Matthew McConaughey plays a man who is diagnosed with HIV, and he then kind of enters the world of people who are also HIV positive, but more importantly, he's working on trying to provide drugs and treatment for people with HIV who don't have access to it, and also sort of entering a world that he's not familiar with. It is an Oscar-winning performance from Matthew McConaughey. Jared Leto was nominated or won an Oscar for this movie. I don't remember.
Won.
He won. Yep.
Possibly
won. I do remember there was a little controversy that Jared Leto is playing a trans person, And, a lot of talk of should trans actors be playing trans people in movies? And this discussion we're still having to this day. But I think it is strong performances from both of them.
Agreed. My number 492 is from 2007. It's the Danny Boyle movie, Sunshine, which has come up a lot on this podcast, I feel like. And so we don't need to go into it too much. Psychological thriller that takes place in space. If you like Danny Boyle movies, you've probably already seen this. But if you haven't, check it out. Sunshine.
Okay, my number 492 is definitely going to be on Kyle's list. I know that for sure. I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Charlie Kaufman.
What? How close to a big go we did not have.
Yeah. This stars Jesse Plemons, Jesse Buckley, and Toni Collette. And there is just a lot of meat on the bones of this film. There's a lot you could chew on. It's kind of enigmatic in a very intriguing, interesting way. It's on Netflix, so it's easy to watch. It's one of those movies that had 8 things about it that really stuck with me, and that's rare and hard to do. So I enjoyed I'm Thinking of Ending Things a lot.
I'll admit I didn't like that movie, but I still think about that movie. So it left an impression on me.
There's something there, right?
There's
Even
something
if you
there.
Didn't enjoy the experience.
Yeah.
Whenever you need to bring the anger out, you just think about that movie.
Oh, now famed film critic Pauline Kael triggers me now. Just anyone mentioning her just sets me off.
Yeah.
My number 492 is a 2005 movie, Capote, starring Philip Seymour Hoffman. I believe the theme to this section of my top 500 are movies I don't remember very well, but performances I do that stuck out to me, because that seems to be everything I can think about these movies. This is a biopic, your choice, about Truman Capote. And it's focused about him writing his most famous nonfiction novel, In Cold Blood. I really like biopics that focus on a period of someone's life instead of trying to tell their entire life story. I think those are often kind of messy and rushed. Whereas can you capture at least the essence of someone even in a brief moment in their life? And this is a successful version of that.
Love it. Wish that guy was still around.
Yeah, we're missing
Capote,
out.
the actor.
Yeah.
Ooh, shades of Capote.
I don't care if Capote's around.
Wow.
My number 491 is La Samurai from 1967. It's a noir crime drama, and what a interesting movie. I really enjoyed this one. It's French, so you have to be ready for that. But other than that, it's pretty great. I don't know what to say about La Samurai. It's a noir film. It's about a crime. It's not really flashy. It's just really well made and old. And well made and old don't jive with me most of the time. And this one did. 491.
That's a real cool guy movie.
Is it a cool guy movie?
Oh yeah.
No, it's not a bro movie. It's just, if that's a movie you love, I know you're a cool guy.
Typical, like, cool guy band teacher, you know what I mean?
You know what I mean.
My 491 is from 2014. It is called Magic in the Moonlight. And this is a romantic comedy with Colin Firth and Emma Stone. And the basic premise is Emma Stone is kind of a spiritualist that is a suspected kind of fake swindler kind of person. You know, she does seances with wealthy ladies and stuff like that. And so Colin Firth goes to kind of unmask her. And, then they kind of have an attraction to each other. And so it's a professional and personal kind of complicated relationship. I think this movie is very charming and very fun, especially if you like Colin Firth and Emma Stone. And it's a pretty slight movie, right? I mean, it's not world changing, but I think it's a fun time. So Magic in the Moonlight is my number 491.
My 491 is a 2007 Brazilian film called Elite Squad. This is starring Wagner Moura, who you would recognize from Narcos. He played Pablo Escobar in the first 2 seasons of that show on Netflix. This movie takes place in the 90s in Rio de Janeiro, and Wagner Moura gets recruited to serve on the Special Police Operations Battalion, which is in charge of raiding and eliminating drug dealers in the favelas of Rio de Janeiro. So this is both an action police movie, but also a movie about Brazilian and specifically Rio de Janeiro politics. And it has a great sequel to, which I even like even better, called Elite Squad 2, Enemy Within, which delves more into the topics of Brazilian policing.
That has been on my watch list, like that series, because I think there's a third one too at this point.
There may be. I've only seen the first 2.
Yeah, that has been on my watch list for forever. And I don't know anybody that's seen it. I just heard from other people online that it was good. So I'll have to bump it up now, Kyle, now that I know it's in your top 500.
Top 500, I'm pretty sure the sequel is even higher, though I do not think it'll be on this list.
Okay. My number 490, we're 1/5 of the way there, is Stalag 17. Which
great pick.
Billy
which
Wilder.
Zach and I watched for one of our Christmas movies episodes, 1953. Billy Wilder directed, and oddly a Christmas movie about U.S. soldiers who are caught behind enemy lines. They're in a prison camp and they're trying to make the best of it at Christmas time, I would say, and other things happen. But yeah, another older movie that I managed to enjoy. 490.
Nice. Well, my 490, I think says a lot about me. It is Cool Hand Luke. And this movie is just awesome. It's about Paul Newman, and he gets arrested in kind of a rural prison, and he's sentenced to 2 years, and he's not going to take it laying down. So he's not going to let the man break him. And it's just fun to watch. You'll never look at hard-boiled eggs the same again, and I like it a lot. So my number 490 is Cool Hand Luke.
Another cool guy movie. My number 490 is a 2011 film, Warrior. This is starring Joel Edgerton, Tom Hardy, and Nick Nolte. Joel Edgerton and Tom Hardy play brothers who are training to be mixed martial artists, and Nick Nolte plays their alcoholic boxer father who is training them. And this is a sports fighting movie, but also a heavy family drama. And it is it's great at both those things. It's a great sports movie. It's a great family drama. And it has I would say a beautiful ending to it, if you remember the ending to Warrior.
I don't remember the ending to Warrior, but I do have fond memories of that movie.
Yeah. It's a great late stage Nick Nolte performance.
Another movie I have fond memories of, my number 498, Kyle, it's Amadeus.
All
You're at 498 already?
489.
489. Okay, there we go.
Oh my gosh. I should not have gone first.
Episode
489.
489.
Directed by Milos Forman. And yeah, don't remember specific details of this movie, but I do remember enjoying it. And
Wait, what movie is this?
Amadeus.
It's so low.
The period setting and yeah, just the music. I don't remember.
The music.
I don't remember.
This is a top 100 for me.
Sure. It's pretty high on Kyle's list too, I believe.
Top 100.
Right.
How do you guys respond when one of you mentions one of your top 100s as like your 497? I mean, at least it made a list,
still top
right?
12%.
Yeah, it's still pretty good.
I don't expect Brat Patrol to be in your top 2,000, so I don't really care where it lands on your list.
Well, spoiler alert, Brat Patrol will not be on this list.
Good. I'm glad, because it's my movie, not yours.
Ooh.
Zach, what's your 489?
It's Barton Fink.
Yeah.
I avoided this movie for a long time because I knew I would hate it. Right? It's everything I didn't want. John Turturro, the Coen brothers, which I believed at the time I did not like Coen brothers movies, and I watched this film and I loved it, and I realized I don't like half of Coen brothers movies, and the other half I really like. So for me, it's just luck of the draw which Coen brothers film it is. But Barton Fink I liked a lot. It's about a screenwriter writing in Hollywood, and it's, you know, I guess satire about how awful Hollywood can be sometimes to an artist, and it's, you know, but it's really good. It's great, and John Goodman is awesome in it. So I was pleasantly surprised and by Barton Fink, but I really dreaded watching this going into it.
That's a movie I remember liking, but I need to revisit. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
My 489 is Unbreakable from 2000, directed by M. Night Shyamalan. This movie feels kind of low for me. Maybe it should be higher, but right now it's a 49, so we'll keep it there, especially being my second favorite M. Night Shyamalan movie. This starring Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson, as well as Robin Wright. And it is, I guess it's kind of a superhero origin story when you really dig down into it, about people who discover they have superpowers, though it doesn't present itself as a superhero movie right away. It's good. They've made some sequels. They're not as good, but Unbreakable holds up.
Agreed. My number 488 is The Rocketeer from 1991. What a great movie, for sure. 1991, I would have been 12 or 13 years old, and this was right up my alley for sure. And I enjoyed it a lot. Just, you know, the 50s style visuals mixed with impossible technology, and there's some good laughs, a lot of heart to the movie. I definitely had a puppy dog crush on Jennifer Connelly at the time, absolutely. And I think I've seen it like within the last 5 to 10 years, and it held up pretty good. 488.
How do you feel about the sequel that's being produced right now, The Return of the Rocketeer?
I have no feeling about it.
It's starring David Oyelowo, who was in that Selma movie.
Yeah.
Sure. I like that guy, and hopefully it'll be good, but I don't care if it is.
Okay. Okay. My 488 is Cachet. It's a Michael Haneke film that I think James talked about recently.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that. This movie makes an impression on you. You can't watch this movie and not have one or two scenes make a huge impression on you that will stick with you for a while. It has Juliette Binoche in it, who's a favorite of mine. And yeah, this movie's really good. I definitely recommend watching Cachet.
My number 488 is Goldfinger from 1964. This is a Sean Connery James Bond film, and it's fun. It has all the James Bond tropes you would hope for. Odd Job is in it. There is a great villain. There are lasers. There is karate, chopping women. It's everything you expect from a everything you expect from a James Bond film is in Goldfinger.
My number 487 is from 1990. It's the indie classic Slacker from Richard Linklater. Have you guys ever seen Slacker? Either of you seen Slacker?
I have not.
You should absolutely see it. It was recently inducted into the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress. It's that important that you guys see it. It's great. It's a hangout movie for sure. It's literally like people walking around Austin, Texas, and they're just like, you're moving from one person to another, and there is a storyline through it, but it's more about like this collection of conversations that people have over the course of the fairly short runtime, 100 minutes from beginning to end. And it's definitely worth watching, especially for its historical significance as one of the movies that kind of broke the American independent scene in the early 90s. Slacker.
Okay, well, my movie had almost no impact on the American independent scene in the 1990s. It is from 1963, and it's The Great Escape. This is a Steve McQueen POW film where he and several hundred POWs are planning to escape a German prisoner of war camp in World War II. And this is just old school, just classic fun. It's how are they going to outsmart the German guards? How are they going to escape? Steve McQueen is just really great to watch on screen, and it's it's adventurous, it's fun, it's exciting, it's tense, it's great, and it's got a good ending. I really like The Great Escape, and if you haven't seen it, it's one of those movies that you absolutely should check out. You won't regret watching The Great Escape. Anyone could enjoy this movie.
It's classic.
Never seen it.
James,
I think you'll have
it's
a good
classic.
time. You'll have a good time. But not a classic that's like boring. It's a classic that's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
It's like Stalag 17.
What was the year again?
63.
All right.
It's definitely shot outdoors. It does not feel like a studio.
Yeah, it does not feel like a stage play or stunted or anything like that.
No.
Okay.
My number 487 is part of a trilogy. This is Three Colors Blue, or in French, Trois Couleurs Bleues. Directed by Krzysztof Kieslowski, starring previously mentioned Juliette Binoche. This is the first in the Three Colors trilogy. This is my second favorite one. In this movie, Juliette Binoche plays a woman who is married to a man who is a composer who dies in a car wreck. And it is about her dealing with the grief of losing someone she loves and moving on with that, as well as also dealing with his legacy as a composer. All three of these movies are great. And Three Colors Blue has great performances, but also because it's a movie about a composer and composition music, has a really great soundtrack too.
Is your favorite Red?
Red is my favorite, which I think is most people's favorites.
Probably. My number 486 is from 2007. It's a psychological horror movie called The Signal. This is why it's on my list. It's a movie told in 3 parts. Each part is directed by a different director, and they're told like non-linearly. So they're kind of happening like all at the same time, even though they don't mix them. They tell you the first one and then the second one and the third one. And the psychological horror movie changes styles from one story to another. So like the first one is just like a straight up horror movie, like, psychological horror / spatter film or slasher film type of thing. And then the second one turns it into a black comedy. And by the last one, it turns into a romance. And it's super unique. And if you're into genre movies, it's definitely one that you need to experience because it's going to turn your head a little bit on just like a straightforward told version of these stories. And I enjoy it quite a bit. 486, The Signal.
Is this starring
Cool,
Lawrence Fishburne?
No.
Okay, I must be thinking of a different movie then.
There's another one called The Signal that is not this.
There's not. Okay, that's good to know. Because I was about to say, like, oh, okay, I've avoided that movie, but different movie.
Not that one.
Perfect.
That one got really bad reviews. The Signal, I think, is like fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
You're
I
The
believe.
Signal.
My 2007 The Signal. Yes.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, my 486 is from 1974. It stars Jack Nicholson, Faye Dunaway, and John Huston. It's Chinatown. This
So
is
low.
Is it?
It's so low, but continue.
Yeah, this is quite the classic film. It's a meandering whodunit in 1930s LA. It involves water rights and family dynamics, and it's certainly a film that's worth watching. It's not one that I had a huge personal connection with, so it's one that I appreciated much more than I cared about, if that makes sense. But it definitely deserves to be on my top 500. That's maybe why it's lower than Kyle would like to see it. But Chinatown is something that, it's an experience watching it, and I'm glad that I've seen it. So it's my number 46.
That is a top 20, 25 movie for me.
Okay.
It's amazing.
It's a hard movie to sell, though. I mean, it's about water rights and,
But
it's just,
the easiest...
It's hard to describe.
The easiest sell is it's a Jack Nicholson noir movie in 1930s LA. And he starts investigating I believe, an affair. And like any good noir movie, he just starts pulling on that thread and delves into something way deeper and bigger and twisted than he ever expected to be in.
Yeah. And it's got a killer ending. I love the last 2 minutes of that film.
And the final, I mean, forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown.
Yeah.
Okay. We got to move on. We could keep talking about Chinatown for a long time. But instead, we're going to talk about my 486, and this is 2014's It Follows. This is a horror movie about a teenage girl, played by Maika Monroe, who
Micah.
Micah. Thank you, Maika Monroe. Only read it. Who sleeps with her boyfriend and then is given a curse, and this curse is only passed through sex, where once you are cursed, death will be following you until it gets you. And in this case, death can appear as a stranger or as someone you know, but death is always moving and always chasing you. You could run, but death will eventually catch up to you. So it is her trying to outrun death. This movie doesn't really have necessarily a setting. I believe it takes place in 2014, but it has also a kind of 80s vibe to it, in the music and the lighting and the fashion. So it's sort of a between periods genre piece. Very good horror movie, though.
My number 485.
I considered it for my list.
All right. My number 485 is from 2012. It's The Battery, which I think was mentioned not too long ago when we talked about zombie movies, but it's really good. It's about two baseball players, and they are in the zombie apocalypse, and there's literally they haven't seen anybody for days, basically, alive. They haven't seen anybody alive for days. They're walking through the forest, and they get in trouble with some zombies and lock themselves into a car, and then 40 zombies surround the car, and you just spend an hour with them in the back of this station wagon trying to figure out how to get out of this car without getting torn to pieces. And it's a great micro budget movie. Costs $6,000 to make from beginning to end, and a good example of what you can do with a good premise and a fairly bland location, but with good acting and all those fun things. The Battery, 485.
Cool. My 485 is School of Rock, directed by Richard Linklater, starring Jack Black and Joan Cusack. And this movie is just a lot of fun. I'm a Jack Black fan. I don't get tired of his shtick. I think it's a lot of fun to watch. And this is one of his best movies. Not the best, because he's got a lot of good movies, I think. But I think School of Rock is a lot of fun. So that's why it's my 45.
Great. My 45 is from 2006. This is The Departed, directed by Martin Scorsese. Starring Jack Nicholson, Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, Marky Mark, Vera Farmiga, Martin Sheen, a whole bunch of other names you know. This is actually a remake of a Hong Kong film called Infernal Affairs, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And it is about a cop who goes undercover as a mole within a mafia organization, as well as a mafia member who goes undercover as a cop. and sort of the intersection of those two. This is a great crime drama. Not my favorite Martin Scorsese. That's why it's at 480, whatever we are at, but a good Scorsese film and good performances from everyone.
I like that movie. Number 4. I did it again. Number 484 for me is Short Term 12, which is a great drama that is one of those movies that you saw, you enjoyed it, and then you reflect on it a few years later and you're like, this cast is amazing. All of these people went on to movies that are ranked higher than this one, which says something. Like, it says I need to revisit Short Term 12 stat, right? You got Brie Larson, you got Caitlin Dever, one half of the duo from Booksmart is in Short Term 12. Rami Malek, Lakeith Stanfield. I mean, these people are in lots of great things that I've enjoyed since I've seen Short Term 12. I already had positive vibes for the movie, but they're just moving up as I think more and more about it. My episode 484, my number 484.
Short Term 12 is in my top 400. So definitely a film I love as well. Okay, my 484 is called Harvey. It is from 1950. It is a Jimmy Stewart film in which he plays a man who has a best friend who's an invisible 6-foot tall rabbit. And a puka is what that is. And everyone thinks that he's insane because he talks to his invisible rabbit friend. But he just might not be as crazy as you think. And I just love this kind of whimsical yet like a little depressing film. And I think it's a really fun performance from Jimmy Stewart. And if you haven't seen Harvey, I think it's worth a watch.
Guys, you're not going to believe this, but James, you and I bingoed. My 484, also Short Term 12.
That is crazy.
That is crazy.
No.
No.
I'm
not joking.
That's impossible. I've seen 4,000 movies, Kyle.
Not only
we got a super bingo.
We got a super bingo.
In the first 15?
Yes, in the first 15. Not only shared on the list, exact same position. It's a bingo. I have nothing to add. I'm just so excited that we have a super bingo. I'm speechless.
We got a super bingo.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it.
It's great.
That's great.
My number 483 is a documentary from 2002 titled Stevie. I've brought this up on the podcast before, so I'll just give it a quick sell and we can move on. This guy, this documentarian, he's the big brother to another guy, right? Or he was before he was a documentarian. Now it's like 10, 20 years later. And he's like, I wonder what happened to my little brother who I lost contact with. You know, the Big Brother, Little Brother program that used to be a big thing in the 80s and 90s. And so he tracks down his little brother and finds out he's not doing so well in life. And then over the course of the documentary, you explore what happened to his little brother. And it's pretty awesome. And all like in the moment footage. Number 483 for me.
Well, I wish mine was another super bingo. I think every time James says his movie, I'm going to be disappointed if it's not the same as my movie.
Yeah.
From this point on. But my 483 is Contagion from 2011. It's a Steven Soderbergh film. Stars Marion Cotillard, Matt Damon, Lawrence Fishburne, Jude Law, Gwyneth Paltrow, Kate Winslet. And it tells the rather unbelievable tale of a pandemic that sweeps across the world. And I think this movie it's like a procedural for a pandemic. And I like procedurals. And this one is a little haunting. And I think it's really well done. And I liked it a lot. So Contagion, my 483.
Is it haunting because the movie handles the pandemic way better than real life did?
A little bit.
Well, I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah, no, at the time you're watching, it's like, man, this is scary, but we'll be okay. Look, we have a plan. And then you get to it, you're like, what are we doing? What we are doing is talking about my number 483. This is Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, directed by Tim Burton, starring Johnny Depp, Helena Bonham Carter, Alan Rickman, Sacha Baron Cohen. This is a film adaptation of the musical about Sweeney Todd, who is a barber in 19th century London who is also murdering people. I want to say no one in this movie is a great singer, but they all bring their own unique inflection to the music that it's fun. And it's a Tim Burton movie, but it feels like before Tim Burton went full Burton, what he did with like Alice in Wonderland and things like that. I think this is your last good watchable Tim Burton movie before he went a little too into his own style.
I'd have to look at his filmography to see if that's true.
Until he got special effects.
Yeah, maybe that's the case. Yeah, I don't have his filmography in front of me, so I could be wrong. But for me, this seems like the edge of the precipice, the tipping point before he kind of just sort of fell off for me.
Gotcha. My number 482 is from 2002. It's the movie Secretary, starring Maggie Gyllenhaal and James Spader. If you've seen this movie, you know about it. And if you haven't, just know that it's not an adult movie, but it's a movie made for adults for sure, about the sexual politics of a small time law firm, I would say, and a boss and his secretary. And it's good, but maybe read up on it before you watch it. 482.
Okay.
It's a movie that meant one thing when it came out, and now 20 years later, it seems very different.
I mean, it's a movie about control.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's still about control.
Fair.
Okay. Well, I've never seen it. I have no idea what we're talking about. my 482 is Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. But I've already talked about it because it used to be my top 400. It has dropped down in my estimation. So I'm going to talk about the movie that bumped it off the list. At my 389 slot is The Two Popes, which came out in 2019. It's on Netflix. This movie is just a two-hander. It's two people talking in different rooms. But I found it so intriguing. It's Anthony Hopkins and Jonathan Pryce. And they played the two popes. One is the outgoing pope and one is the incoming pope. And I just love their conversations with each other. They have very different styles, but they both kind of represent this position that has so much importance for them. And so they, I just find it fascinating, the position that both of them are in as they talk to each other. But it's just two people talking. So know that going in. It's called The Two Popes. I love it.
I've yet to see that.
You should see it. It's good.
My 482 is True Grit from 2010, directed by the Coen brothers. This is a Western about a farm girl played by Haley Steinfeld, whose father is murdered. So she hires a U.S. Marshal and his partner, played by Jeff Bridges and Matt Damon, to hunt down the killer. I forget that this is a Matt Damon movie. To me, this is a Jeff Bridges and Haley Steinfeld movie, but Matt Damon is in it. It is a Coen Brothers film, but it is not the most Coenist of their movies. Coenist? Is that a word? We'll make that a word.
Sure.
So like Barton Fink is more of a Coen Brothers style movie than True Grit is. Still a good movie though. Disagree?
Maybe.
Miller's Crossing.
I don't know.
Okay. I don't remember True Grit having as many Coenisms in it as other movies of theirs.
I don't know. Matt Damon is pretty wacky in True Grit.
And see, I forget that he's in that movie. Like obviously Jeff Bridges' performance is a little I don't know, not hammy, but he's playing a caricature in a sense.
Right.
But the world they live in feels rather real, whereas Coen Brothers' worlds can feel a little contrived at times.
All right. Oh my gosh. We're 19 movies in. My number
Bingo.
481 is from 2005. It's V for Vendetta, which was written by the Wachowskis, and it feels very like Matrix adjacent for sure, even though they did not direct it. Stars Natalie Portman and Hugo Weaving, and it's good. I like this movie. I've seen it multiple times, and maybe its biggest sin is inspiring people to wear their Guy Fawkes mask around all the time.
It's kind of obnoxious.
It should have passed,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Remember when Anonymous was like raiding Scientology places wearing the Guy Fawkes mask? And it was like, I don't think these things connect, but
Yeah.
somehow they connected them.
There's definitely a sect of people who watched V for Vendetta and took the wrong message away from that movie.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, my 41 is another movie that dropped Hard Candy. So instead, I'm going to talk about the movie that bumped it. It's my 383 slot, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Specifically, the 1966 cartoon, not the Jim Carrey remake.
Correct choice.
Yeah, thank you. Directed by Chuck Jones and written by Dr. Seuss. I don't need to say much about this. We've all seen How the Grinch Stole Christmas, but it's a classic.
My number 481 is a 2008 film. This is In Bruges, directed by Martin McDonagh. It is starring Colin Farrell, Brendan Gleeson, Ralph Fiennes, amongst other people. Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson play two, I believe they're hitmen, who botch an assignment and are sent to Bruges to stew for a while until their boss, Ralph Fiennes, can come and deal with them. And it's a black comedy in that sense, where they're just kind of, it's two guys waiting and discussing why they're there, what brought them there, what's going to happen to them as they wait for a consequence to their actions. It is a movie that I did not like the first time I watched it, but people raved about it. I gave it a second chance, and something about it clicked where it became a top 500 movie for me.
My number 480 is the 1966 Western Django, which actually ranks higher than Django Unchained, Tarantino's kind of soft remake of this movie. I enjoyed this quite a bit. It's a spaghetti Western in Italian, and it's just it's a sun-soaked movie. I mean, the colors are really interesting in this movie. I recently got a 4K from like Arrow, which is a boutique label. They're charging like $50 for it, but I am very tempted because I think this would look amazing on 4K. But anyway, it's a Sergio Corbucci movie. It's definitely grindhousey Western for sure. Like at some point, somebody brings out like a Gatling gun, even though it's set in the Old West. And maybe the first 15 minutes is just Django dragging a coffin behind him with a giant chain through the desert and into a town. It's awesome. If you guys have not seen this movie and you like Django Unchained, you should definitely check this one out because it's better than what it inspired, in my opinion.
Okay, cool.
James, if I knew you liked Westerns with Gatling guns, I would have mentioned that Wild Bunch also has a Gatling gun in it.
Maybe I've seen Wild Bunch because I vaguely remember that. It's at the end, right?
Very end, yep.
I've probably seen it.
Nice.
Okay, I've only have two more of these, but my 480 is another film that got bumped from my top 400. It's Always, which I know James is going to be disappointed to see it fall down a little bit lower. But instead, I'm going to talk about the movie that bumped it. It's my 379 slot, Excalibur, which is a 1981, knights and sorcerers film from John Borman. It has Helen Mirren in it. I think Patrick Stewart is in it. It is a wild ride. It is an acid trip of a King Arthur story. So it's very 80s. It's unlike anything I've seen. I think it's so fascinating to watch and a lot of fun. But yeah, it's a complete work of art enigma to itself. It's amazing. But yeah, talks about King Arthur, talks about Merlin, Camelot, all that. And it's called Excalibur. And you really have to see this just to experience it. It's my 379.
Nice. Your 379.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
480. Oh, you threw me off there, Zach.
You're 480.
My 480 is a 2018 MCU film, Black Panther, directed by Ryan Coogler, starring Chadwick Boseman, Michael B. Jordan, Lupita Nyong'o, other people. This is the Black Panther movie, right? It takes place in Wakanda. You have great Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther, even better Michael B. Jordan as his nemesis, Killmonger.
Agreed.
Yep. It establishes Wakanda and Black Panther within the MCU universe. It is a really good movie. And I've been learning more about Black Panther 2, and I am super depressed that Letitia Wright is an anti-vaxxer on the set of Black Panther 2. So I was excited for Shuri as Black Panther, but I am not excited for Letitia Wright to be in these movies.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Quite a conundrum. My number 479. Is that right? Yeah, 479 is Death Proof from 2007. Speaking of Tarantino. This is his half of the Grindhouse double feature that he made with Robert Rodriguez. And I enjoy this movie. I know people kind of rank it low when they talk Tarantino, but as a relatively, it's not exactly single location, but it's mostly single location until you get to the car chase at the end. It's a lot of people hanging out in a bar and vibing and just cool dialogue and lots of wordplay, lots of like I don't know, the politics of a bar, and I don't know. That's not what the movie's about. I don't know what I'm saying.
So Cheers. It's like Cheers.
It's Quentin Tarantino's Cheers. Exactly what I was going for. No, I mean, if you're a Tarantino fan, you've seen this and you probably hate it, but I don't. And that's why it's my number 479.
Cool. My number 479 is my last film today that has been bumped from my original top 400 list. It is Speed. And instead, I'll talk about the movie that bumped it. My 375 is Seven Samurai, which is a Kurosawa film. Absolutely a stone cold classic. I watched this film and the same day watched it with the commentary track on because I was like, I need more Seven Samurai. And it's a great film. It's been plagiarized in a million different ways. And if you want to see a samurai film, Kurosawa is the way to go. That's why it is on my list. Seven Samurai.
That's a movie I want to revisit. It's been a while, but it's 3 hours long, right?
Yeah. It's
been
beefy.
a while. It's a commitment.
Yeah, it is.
I'll find the time.
Yeah.
My number 479, another MCU film. This is 2017's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. In this movie, the team is back together, but this time they are exploring Peter Quill's parentage. That was kind of a mystery of the first movie, and we delve a little bit deeper into that. You've got your normal cast within this movie, as well as the addition of Kurt Russell. And the only thing that I was bummed about this movie is, and the soundtrack, they didn't include Cats in the Cradle, which would have been perfect for the themes of this movie. But missed opportunity on James Gunn part. Still a good MCU movie.
Agreed.
My number 478 is from 2010. It's a romantic drama / depressing movie called Blue Valentine, starring Michelle Williams.
I like this one.
Michelle Williams and Ryan Gosling. And it basically shows their relationship as a couple from courtship to breakup, but it's like not a linearly told films. It's like just a collection of scenes kind of out of order. They kind of just leave you as the viewer to try to suss out where they are in the relationship. Sometimes it's super obvious. Sometimes the scene starts and they're fine with each other, and by the end they hate each other. And other times the scene starts and they hate each other, and by the end they've made up. And so it's like a hard film to place exactly the timeline of. But it's one of these movies where you kind of fall in love with these actors playing these characters, and they complicate themselves in interesting ways. And you can see how they are, when things are good, they are good together. And obviously, when things are bad, it's very toxic for both of them. And so by the end of it, when, well, spoiler alert, things don't really work out, it's affecting. And it's a movie you kind of have to know what you're getting into, because it is not going to be super uplifting, but it will make you think about your relationships and what's truly important and things like that. And it's just, those two actors together are gold. And Michelle Williams was awesome in it. She was Academy Award nominated, and Ryan Gosling is great in it as well. Blue Valentine.
Those actors lived with each other for a couple months before filming, which I think is really cool.
So that they could get like a chemistry going.
Exactly. Like a history.
I think it worked.
James, we came so close to another bingo because Blue Valentine is my 395.
Oh,
but
not that close. That's like 60 away.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm saying is it was almost in the 400 to 500 zone.
Gotcha.
But it's not
a bingo on the list, not a super bingo.
Definitely not a super bingo.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, that would be amazing. What are the odds of a super bingo?
I mean, 1 in 500 in this case.
Oh man. Okay. My number 478 is The Terminator from 1984. I don't need to say much about this movie. It's awesome. And it's my 478.
That's another top 100 movie for me.
It's good.
It's very good. It's great, in fact. My 478 is a 2014 movie directed by Adam Wingard. This is The Guest, starring Dan Stevens and previously mentioned Maika Monroe.
Micah.
No, it's Maika now. I decided. Elijah 4. Micah? Why is there an A in it then?
Maika
Monroe. Okay. Well, if she comes up a third time, I will possibly get it right. In this movie, Dan Stevens plays a soldier who returns to a family whose son was killed, I believe, in Afghanistan, and tells this family, I knew your son. I was there when he died. We were really good friends. And he kind of moves in with the family and starts to comfort them. But Maika Monroe, the daughter, starts to suspect that there is something more to the Dan Stevens character and tries to figure out who is he really. This is a thriller movie. Similar to It Follows, it has shades of 80s action thriller to it. Even though it takes place in present times, it has these kind of 80s horror looks to it. The final set piece takes place in an impossibly built fun house in high school, something that you only see in movies, especially movies from the 80s, but is fun to see in this movie. And it surprised me. It's a good movie overall, The Guest.
Love that movie, for sure. My number 477 is Black Death from 2010. This is a British movie directed by Christopher Smith, director of Triangle, one of my favorites of all time. This movie stars Sean Bean and Eddie Redmayne. It's set in the 1300s in medieval England. So it's what do they call them? It's a night movie. Knight, and it's great. It's more Game of Thrones than it is Excalibur. That's for sure. Like it's a movie that definitely does not hold back on the violence and the griminess. It literally takes place like during the plague, and so nothing good is happening in the world at this time. And definitely not that nothing good happens in the movie, but it's a war movie for sure.
James, again, you're toying with me because we came so close to a super bingo right now. So close.
You have Black Death on your list?
No, I have Black Swan. You're toying with me, James.
They're the
Black
same
Swan,
movie.
2010, directed by Darren Aronofsky, starring Natalie Portman and Mila Kunis. And it's a ballet film, but it's about obsession, jealousy, dedication, insanity. It's super intense and well shot and well paced and visceral. I'd say it's a very visceral film. It's kind of weird at times for sure. I mean, it's a mix between All About Eve and Birdman, I would say. And I like it. So it's my 477, Black Swan.
Definitely better than Birdman.
Well, not on my list.
My number 477 is Big Trouble in Little China from 1986, directed by John Carpenter. This movie is in the same vein as They Live, and is this crazy campiness to it. It's starring Kurt Russell. He plays a trucker who gets inadvertently involved in this cosmic battle between good and evil, where there is a sorcerer called Lopan and his 3 evil henchmen who are attacking Earth. And oh man, this movie's crazy. And Kurt Russell, the trucker, needs to save the Earth from this immortal enemy, as well as save Kim Cattrall, who's in this movie too. Kurt Russell's great. He plays a trucker. He's kind of has sort of a snide response to everything going on. You know, he's looking at this whole situation like an everyman of like, how can there be immortal sorcerers doing battle on Earth? Like, what is going on here? He's kind of the audience surrogate for this movie. It's campy, it's cheesy, but it's a lot of fun.
Nice. My number 476 is the documentary from 2005 titled The Devil and Daniel Johnston, which, if you don't know who Daniel Johnston is, he's kind of like a late 80s, early 90s cult folk musician, but he's a guy with bipolar disorder. So his songs are very simple lyrically, but might be one of those you had to be there things. But I love Daniel Johnston because his songs are very simple. They're about loneliness and love and life and all these types of things from the perspective of somebody who barely left his house because of his bipolar disorder and some other mental blocks he had. And this documentary just goes into his career as a folk musician, and he was a big influence on Kurt Cobain from Nirvana. Like, he listened to him like crazy pre-Nirvana. In fact, if you've ever seen photos of Kurt in the early days of Nirvana where he's wearing that shirt with the frog on it, that's a Daniel Johnston shirt. And he passed away maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And I to this day, every now and then when I get sad, I just listen to Hi, How Are You, which is his album from the early 80s. And it's a nice reminder that other people feel the same way sometimes. And if you haven't seen the documentary, it's worth checking out just to learn about this lesser known person who I think mattered to a lot of other people.
Cool. My 476 is Adaptation from 2002, directed by Spike Jonze, starring Nicolas Cage, Meryl Streep, and Chris Cooper. This is a Spike Jonze film. It's trippy. It's heady. And it's super interesting. It's an adaptation of the book The Orchid Thief. And it's about Nicolas Cage trying to adapt that book and finding it very difficult. And he plays 2 roles. He plays himself and his brother in the film. It's a weird movie, but a very satisfying one with a great ending. It's kind of a meta ending. And I like Adaptation a lot.
Isn't he playing a version of Charlie Kaufman and his made-up twin brother?
Yeah.
Adaptation is an example of Charlie Kaufman should stick to writing. Get out of that director's chair. Because he wrote it, and it's great. It's amazing. My number 476 is a 2020 film from Pixar called Soul, directed by Pete Docter. This movie starring Jamie Foxx and Tina Fey. And Jamie Foxx is playing a middle-aged middle school teacher who's also a jazz musician who has a near-death experience and goes to this bureaucratic world of souls as Pixar is able to do that world building and explores some pretty heady themes of like, where do we come from? Where do we go? And what is the meaning of life? This is a kid-friendly movie, but definitely a movie, I think, more directed towards adults because it's dealing with those higher concepts. And it's talking about a middle-aged man who's trying to figure out what is my direction in life, and maybe something that a 5-year-old can't really relate to. But it does also have a ghost trying to eat pizza, which little kids find very funny. So it's got something for everyone.
My number 475 marks the halfway point of this episode of the Cinereelists. The movie I picked for 475 is Moneyball from 2011. This is co-written by Aaron Sorkin, but not directed by him, but definitely feels like an Aaron Sorkin movie. I think that's what I like about it. It stars Brad Pitt, Jonah Hill, Philip Seymour Hoffman, amongst others. And Brad Pitt is just kind of like this delivery service for this behind the scenes sports story. I think probably the flasher performance is just seeing Jonah Hill not be Jonah Hill in a movie for the first time when I saw this back in 2011. I think it's the first time Jonah Hill impressed me instead of made me laugh, which I think says something. And I think since then he's done it a couple times. He doesn't do it every time, nor is he trying to. But when he does, he tends to hit it out of the park. Like when he directed a movie, turns out that movie was pretty good. When he starred in, what was that movie? Wolf of Wall Street.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When he was in that, you could still see some Jonah Hill in there, but it was like a really good version of the character they needed him to play in that movie. So anyway, Moneyball's great. And even if you don't like sports, there's something for everybody in this one. My number 475.
Cool. Well, my 475 is The 400 Blows by Francois Truffaut. It's a French New Wave film that I think is definitely worth the watch, especially if you want to dip into the genre. It centers around a young boy who comes from a poor family that kind of neglects him. He's not great in school, and so it follows him along as he kind of gets caught for crime and goes to jail and escapes. And it's all non-actors, and it's beautifully shot in black and white. And I just really enjoy The 400 Blows. It's a unique film, and it had a lot of effect on the future of cinema. So yeah, 400 Blows, my 475.
That is a great choice, Zach.
Thank you.
My 475 is a movie where I don't know how you rank for these lists, and it just kind of came into this spot, so we can kind of discuss that. It's Schindler's List from 1993, directed by Steven Spielberg.
You think, I mean, this is easy to answer. You think 474 movies are much better than Schindler's List?
No,
obviously.
because this is not a ranking of our best movies. This is a ranking of our favorite movies, and favorites and bests are much different things. And although I think Schindler's List is an amazing movie, it's a 5-star movie. It's a movie. It's about the Holocaust. It's a
5-star movie. Do you have movies above it that are not 5 stars?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because
that's interesting.
We're talking favorites here. But this isn't a favorite movie of mine. Like I'm not like I can't.
It's my number 155.
There you go. Like I can't, I don't own Schindler's List. I can't wait to pop it back in and just sit there and experience the Holocaust again for 3 hours.
I own it. I watch it every week.
Well, that explains a lot, James. But I can't deny that this is an amazing and affecting and powerful movie. So it feels like it needs to be on the list somewhere. And 475 is where it ended up.
For the record, Schindler's List is number 365 for me.
Oh, man,
much higher than where Kyle put it.
110 away from a bingo.
I can't wait to comment on every film that's above
I
Schindler's
know.
List.
I realized the danger of putting this on the list in the first place is like, oh, really? But it is one better than Soul.
Yeah. Your 474, The Shaggy Dog. All right.
Yeah, it's gonna hurt.
My 474 is a much worse film than Schindler's List for sure. It's the documentary Beauty Day from 2011, directed by Jay Cheel. It's centered on this guy named Ralph Zavadil, who had this low budget public access TV show where he would do crazy stunts, very Jackass-esque stunts. And this was way before Jackass. And he got a little bit of like a local celebrity off of this in Canada. And over the course of the movie, it explores kind of his rise to fame in the mid 90s to like late 90s, and then the crash. And he takes things to the extreme quite often. And he literally got kicked off of TV. And then, you know, his local celebrity faded over the course of years. And you're just kind of catching up with this guy and learning about his life. And he is definitely a character. It's a movie that's mixed with like interviews from today or when they filmed this in 2011, mixed with a bunch of clips from his old show in context of like how his relationships have changed since that fame to today. And yeah, I enjoy this movie quite a bit, and I encourage people to check out Beauty Day.
Cool. My 474 is The Bridge Over the River Kwai. This is a 1957 David Lean film. It stars Alec Guinness, among other people. And this is another POW war film. And these are British POWs in a Japanese camp in, I think at the time, Burma. And they are tasked with the job of building a bridge, like kind of slave labor for the Japanese. And this bridge is going to be used, right, to further the Japanese war effort, right? And so all of these POWs kind of want to undermine the project, right? But if they're caught undermining it, then they could, you know, be punished for that. And it's a great film. It's a classic with memorable music, melodies for sure. And I really like it a lot. And again, it nails the ending. So that is why it's my 474.
Fun fact, the tune they whistle is called the Colonel Bogey March.
That is
a
super fun.
I know. That's why
I could smile off that fact for days.
Your grin is amazing right now. My 474 is a Miyazaki film, Hayao Miyazaki film from 2004 called Howl's Moving Castle. This is an animated film because Miyazaki works within animation about a young woman who is cursed to have the body of an old witch. And the only way that she can break the curse is to team up with a wizard who lives within this enormous walking castle, Howl's Moving Castle. Miyazaki is great at world building. He builds these fantastical worlds of wizards and demons and witches and impossible machines. And they're incredibly creative, but he's also an amazing storyteller. And I don't think Miyazaki is a director that comes up very often on this podcast. He has obviously in the past, but I'm going to say right now, I think we need to sometime find the time to do a top 10 Hayao Miyazaki list episode, because I think he's a director that we should talk more about and who is he's amazing. He's a great.
That would require me watching like 7 more Miyazaki films.
Yeah. So we have to plan it out here, James, but I think it's something that could be done. Zach, do you think you have 10?
I do.
You do. Perfect.
My number 473 is the first Hunger Games movie, which seems to have come up recently. I think Zach mentioned it recently. He's considering watching the rest. No, that was Divergent, wasn't it?
No, Hunger
No, I
Games came
did
up also
both.
in the previous episode to that.
Okay, perfect. I don't need to sell Hunger Games, but I enjoy this series of movies. The first one is the best, and it's at 473 on my list.
If you want to hear us talk about the Hunger Games, listen to part one of our part 2 episode series.
Yeah. My 473 is it's an underrated film from 2011. That's for sure. It's Source Code, directed by Duncan Jones, starring
Yeah.
Jake Gyllenhaal. And Source Code is just a really fun, solid sci-fi time travel kind of movie that no one talks about, but it's great. It's good. Basically, Jake Gyllenhaal is a soldier who wakes up and he's on a train that is going to blow up in 8 minutes. And he slowly figures out that he's getting sent back again and again and again to this train to figure out who bombed it. And so it's got that kind of like, body filling element, the time travel element, the repeating day of Groundhog element. It's a lot of fun. I recommend Source Code a lot, and it's my 473.
What I like about that movie is he's not living the same day over and over again. He's living the same 10 minutes over and over again.
Yeah.
So he's
Yeah.
like 10 minutes to convince everyone around him what's going on. It's great. That's a really good pick.
Yeah. Thank you.
My number 473 is Dawn of the Dead from 1978. This is directed by George Romero, and this is a classic zombie movie about a group of people who are holed up in a mall during the zombie Holocaust. It is definitely a commentary on consumerism, being the fact that they're in a mall, but also has some really fun zombie action scenes involving trying to find weapons to fight the zombies with within the mall itself and all its various stores. This movie definitely influenced, what's that video game, James, where you're in a mall fighting zombies and you can like go into stores and attach chainsaws to kayak paddles and things like that.
I know what you're talking about, but I never played it.
Okay.
So,
All right. So, I mean, definitely influence of that. But aside from the great zombie effects, the DIY aesthetic to it, it's also a well-told story. Check it out. Dawn of the Dead.
my number 472 is from 2012. It's a stop motion animated movie titled Paranorman, which I need to rewatch because this is the season to watch Paranorman for sure. Maybe pair this with The Nightmare Before Christmas, and you've got the two movies I'd most like to watch right before Halloween for sure. It's from Leica Studios, has kind of an all-star voice cast, and I find it charming in a similar way to The Nightmare Before Christmas, and it's my number 472. I remember seeing it in 3D. It's one of the few movies that I have a distinct memory of, like, that was a cool 3D movie in a theater. Now, I'll never experience it again that way, but it is in my brain as that.
Nice. Okay. Well, my 472 is Hannah and Her Sisters. This is from 1986. It's got quite the cast. Mia Farrow, Michael Caine, Carrie Fisher, Max von Sydow. Anyway, it's a funny drama about relationships of these three sisters and their husbands, and it's just it's a drama with a lot of great lines and conversations and writing, and I like it a lot. My 472.
My 472 is a 2017 movie that I believe I talked about on Top 10 Last 10 recently, Paddington 2, directed by Paul King. This is a sequel to Paddington, which I have not seen, but Paddington 2 I enjoyed.
You went straight for Paddington 2.
Well, yeah, so I think I talked about this. Paddington 2 was one of the movies that was a 100% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. I believe it was the most recent movie to be 100% fresh. So I'm like, okay, I might as well check this movie out. And it was good. I really enjoyed it. I don't think it was a perfect movie, but it's sort of a Wes Anderson style kids movie. It's not obviously not directed by Wes Anderson, but it has that same aesthetic, that same vibe to it. And it's a lot of fun. And you've got a really fun Hugh Grant's performance as the bad guy.
You described another movie in the past as better than it probably deserves to be, and that's Paddington 2.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah.
Like you would never guess that movie's as good as it turns out to be unless you actually watch it. For sure.
Which is maybe one reason why it was rated so well, because people had low expectations for a sequel. And then
No, I think Paddington 1, people were just, I mean, everything kid gets adapted, and Paddington 1 is good and has shades of what they did way better in Paddington 2. And so I think people saw potential in Paddington 1, and then those people saw Paddington 2 and then started spreading the word that like Paddington 1 is good, but Paddington 2 is a different level.
Yeah.
And I encourage people, if you want to jump into the Paddington series, you could start with 1. But you could just as easily start at 2. You will not be lost, and you don't really even need to ever watch 1. It's fine, but it's not as good as Paddington 2 anyway. So,
oh yeah, I've only seen 2, and I figured out what's going on pretty quickly.
You're fine with it.
Yeah.
My number 471 is for sure a movie lower than Schindler's List on Kyle's list. It's from 2012, and it's Compliance.
Oh yeah, no.
Oh yeah, he hates that movie.
I hate that movie. Yeah.
Kyle hates it. I think Zach is neutral-ish. I don't know. Where do you land on Compliance, Zach?
I think it's a compelling film.
Yeah, I think it's a well-made drama about control, and that's what the movie's about. And it's based on a true story. I think true stories are important to tell in cinema, and thus this is my 471.
Cool. My 471 is a little known film called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And it's a film that I didn't like as much when I first saw it, but every time I've seen it since, I've liked it more. And I think it's a rising star for me. So I expect in the future rewatches it for it to go higher. But Steven Spielberg, Richard Dreyfuss, Francois Truffaut, who I mentioned before with 400 Blows, he's in it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a movie about obsession and aliens.
That's another top 100 movie for me. Also came out in 1977. Did you know that George Lucas and Steven Spielberg made a bet? And actually, George Lucas proposed this bet because he thought that his movie Star Wars was going to bomb. So he made a deal with Steven Spielberg. It was like, hey, whoever's movie does better, let's give the other person like a percentage of it.
Oh, wow.
And Steven Spielberg was like, yeah, sure, why not? And then Spielberg got a percentage of Star Wars money. Not that Spielberg is a poor man anyway. Like, he's a well-known filmmaker, even in 1977, but yeah.
That's amazing.
Yep. I am 95% sure that's a true story.
Okay.
My number 471 is The Woman in the Window. Not the terrible 2021 Joe Wright version we saw, but a completely different movie, also called The Woman in the Window, from 1944, directed by Fritz Lang. I watched this movie because I thought the Joe Wright version was a remake of it. It turns out they are not related at all, aside from the title, and that's actually fine. In this version, the Woman in the Window, you have a professor who encounters a woman on the street and then gets mixed up in a world of murder and crime. And that's all I really want to say about it, because it's definitely a spoilery movie, but it is a noir film. It has violence in it. It has a seductive woman. The woman is played by Joan Bennett, and she's a incredibly strong player in this movie. I think your best noir films have a strong female lead, if not even stronger female lead than the male performer. And the Woman in the Window is definitely a case where you have a incredibly strong female lead. The professor is played by Edward Robinson, who is a face you recognize if you see movies from the 30s and 40s. I believe he's in Citizen Kane, amongst other things.
Heard of it. Citizen Kane, I mean. Number 470 for me is from 2011, and the movie is called Shame. Directed by Steve McQueen, starring Carey Mulligan, Zach's favorite, and Michelle Fassbender, Kyle's favorite. And this
I do love
movie,
Michelle Fassbender.
Michelle
Fassbender?
Yeah, Carey, Michael Mulligan, and Carey Fassbender. That's what I said. Yeah, so I don't know why this is my erotic drama section, but for some reason it is.
It is, yeah. This is Secretary.
This is definitely Secretary-esque, I would say, but different tone for sure. Shame is very serious and somber, I would say, and intense, with great performances. But originally got an NC-17 rating here in the United States for good reasons. So just know what you're jumping into. But if you like good acting and adult-centered material topics, I don't know what you'd call it, Shame is a really good watch for sure. My number 470.
Cool. My number 470 is a little bit of a nostalgia pick. It's Les Miserables from 1998. So this is the one that stars Liam Neeson, Jeffrey Rush, Uma Thurman, Claire Danes. And it was my first exposure to the Les Mis story. And the Les Mis story is so good. I mean, it's one of the most beloved plots in history, I would say, with lots of adaptations. And this was my first exposure to it. So I kind of fell in love with it. And I've since seen the Broadway musical. I've seen the remakes. I've listened to different recordings of cast singing the music. But I really liked this one, especially the first half of it. I liked a lot. So Les Mis from 1998. It's my number 470.
Nice. Looking at my list, I realized that 471 through 468 for me are all crime noirs. I'm not sure how that happens, but my second crime noir in a row here, number 470, is Get Carter from 1971. This is starring Michael Caine. He is playing a small-time criminal who is working in London. He gets wind that his brother has died, and it was ruled as suicide. And he goes to the funeral, and he starts poking around because he does not believe that his brother actually killed himself, and starts opening a much larger and seedier plot going on within London. This is a gritty movie. Like, you're not seeing the beautiful side of London. You're seeing the dirty, industrial, crime-ridden side of London. And you're also getting Michael Caine playing kind of an anti-hero. For the most part, Michael Caine in the last 20 years has been playing, Alfred from Batman, and sort of wise sages is kind of where he's slotted in, partially because of his age and because of his accent and whatnot. But in this case, you're getting a much younger Michael Caine playing a much grittier and hard to love character, but still a very watchable and fun movie. I wouldn't say fun, a good movie.
Have you ever seen the Stallone remake?
I have not. Is that worth seeing?
Never seen it. That's
okay.
why I was curious. I haven't seen either of them.
I would recommend Get Carter. In fact, I'd recommend it about 10 more than Schindler's List. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. My number 469 is from 2012. It's a very messy movie called Cloud Atlas. And if you guys know anything about me and my movie tastes, occasionally I like movies that swing big, and Cloud Atlas is definitely one of those movies. It definitely doesn't hit a home run every swing, but it's swinging for sure. It's swinging a lot because this movie's long. It's like 3 hours long, has a crazy cast. I mean, like Tom Hanks, Halle Berry's in this, Jim Sturgis, Hugh Grant, a bunch of other people, and it's a movie about reincarnation, and it spans like all these different universes and all these different timelines, and the same cast plays different characters in each individual segment of the timeline. And so it's fun in that way, and that you get to see Halle Berry and Tom Hanks and Hugh Grant like play roles that they're just absolutely not going to play in other movies, right? There's like no movie that's going to cast Tom Hanks as like a New York gangster with like a really thick accent where he's like doing New York gangster things. Well, maybe someday, but probably not at this point. And this movie does that. It's a Wachowski movie that they co-directed with Tom Tykwer from Run the Little Run, the director of Run the Little Run. And yeah, I mean, you shouldn't watch this expecting something amazing. Just expect to be, I don't know, impressed with the scope of what they attempted, even if the attempt wasn't flawless. And I enjoy it. My number 469.
Nice. I'm apparently in my David Lean section of my list because my 469 is Lawrence of Arabia. And this is based on a true story about T.E. Lawrence. It stars Peter O'Toole, and it's the story of, you know, a British officer who kind of motivates a bunch of warring Arab tribes to fight the Turks during World War One. And it's just so beautifully shot. I mean, the whole thing is the definition of an epic, and it's really great. And one of my big movie goals is to be able to see this in a theater in 70 millimeter.
Yeah. My parents saw it in a theater in the what's like the super wide vision. It was some shtick they had in the 70s.
Okay.
But they said it was great, and I'm
That's
jealous.
awesome.
Yeah. It's also a movie where if you're curious to know how did borders get drawn in the Middle East and bring us to the mess that we're kind of in over there, this movie will clue you into how that all happened.
Yeah.
My number 469 is Scarface, not the 1983 version, but the 1932 version, directed by
Well
Howard
done.
Hawks.
Yes.
So Scarface 83 is a top 100 movie for me. I love it. And I'd always heard that it was a remake, and I assumed it was loosely based upon a movie from the 30s. I saw 1932 Scarface, and it's the same movie. 83 Scarface is about cocaine in Miami, where 32 Scarface is about rum or alcohol and bootlegging in, I believe, New York City. I can't remember exactly, but it hits all the beats about a small-time criminal played by Paul Mooney rising through the ranks of his organization, becoming the boss. He has a sister who he's trying to keep away from the criminal life, who his best friend is also involved with. The ending is very similar. This is not to say that it makes 83 Scarface any worse, but I did not realize that there was such a close connection between these two movies plot-wise, where the only big difference besides cast is that we've changed the setting and the illegal substance involved. Still, though, this is a good movie, and I think if you like 83 Scarface, you'll like 32 Scarface.
My number 468 is from 2005, Last Days, from director Gus Van Sant. It depicts not necessarily the exact last days of Kurt Cobain, but kind of what Gus Van Sant likes to imagine the last days of Kurt Cobain might have been. Not that like it's a rosy picture of Kurt Cobain's last days. It's more like, just a guy that's very Kurt Cobain-esque and his last days on the planet. And it's a vibe movie. Like if you've seen Gus Van Sant's other movies, there's no like high plot points that you're going to go through over the course of this 2-hour movie. It's more just like learning about this specific character who's very similar to a real world musical legend at this point. And just kind of experiencing life with him, with this kind of weird, overarching, impending doom timeline attached to it. Yeah, it's good. And it's also my number 468.
Okay, well, I think you guys are going to be a little surprised by my 468 and think it's a little bit too low. But I just want to remind you that I still like it better than Kyle likes Schindler's List. My 468 is Blade Runner 2049. And this is a film that I think there are really great things in Blade Runner 2049. And also things that I don't care for as much. I think are a little more uneven. And I am fully aware that I'm not a Jared Leto fan at all. I just really don't enjoy him anymore on screen. But the things that I do like in Blade Runner 2049 are incredible. And so I'm there for that. So that's why it's my 468.
Yeah, that came up last week in our movies we want to talk about.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I made your list. Even if it's not top 100 for me, it's top 200, but I'm so glad I made your top 12% of movies.
Nice.
My number 468 and the final film in my quadrilogy of crime noir is Widows from 2018, directed by Steve McQueen. This movie is starring Viola Davis, Michelle Rodriguez in a role that's not a Fast and Furious movie, which is surprising, and Elizabeth Debicki. They play women who are all married to men who are running a crime heist syndicate, and their husbands are all killed on a job, and these women band together to pull off their own heist, partially because they need to repay the debts of their husbands themselves. So this is a female-led heist movie with some other things going on it too. It is well directed by Steve McQueen. The opening sort of heist shootout is all shot from the back of a van as the van is running away, and you only see things through that perspective, which is great. But you also have really great performances from Viola Davis, Elizabeth Debicki, and Michelle Rodriguez, who doesn't do a lot in the Fast and Furious movies, but I do think is a decent actor and can show some chops in this movie.
Good choice.
My number 467 is from 2011. It's Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, which I think is a movie that doesn't get enough play. Like, not enough people talk about this movie for sure. I think when it came out, it's 10 years after 9/11, and it is a 9/11 movie. And so I think people just, they don't want to go there for some reason. And I think this is definitely worth seeing. Tom Hanks stars in it. Sandra Bullock's in it. It's got a great child performance in Thomas Horn. And I mean, it's a 9/11 movie, so I don't want to spoil a whole lot. But let's just say that it's a family that's torn apart by 9/11. And it's good. It's a good drama that circles a historical event, but it's not about the historical event, which I think is the right way the most effective way to make a 9/11 movie I've seen so far when it comes to like the events in New York. Like maybe there's a caveat for United 93, because that is a good 9/11 related movie for sure. But this one, 25th Hour, exists in the same part of my mind where like 9/11's there as a backdrop, but it's not about that, but it also is at the same time. And so it makes my list at 467.
467 or 464?
467.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just numbered my things are weird. All right. My 467 is Alien from 1979.
Whoa.
Yeah, I like this film.
Yeah.
It's directed by Ridley Scott. You guys know Alien. It's a great film. It's not my favorite Alien film, so that's why it's a little bit lower on the list.
Is Alien 3 your favorite Alien film?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. We did have a talk.
Alien 3 is great.
It's not great. It's good.
It's pretty great.
They're all good in their own ways. I
Yeah.
think the first three kind of stand alone individually.
Yeah.
I didn't like the look of Alien 3. It looks like a mid-90s music video, just in its coloring and its like kind of icky yellow-greenness to everything.
I mean, you're talking about the
Gotcha.
guy who directed Closer by Nine Inch Nails, the music video for that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's basically just an extension of the aesthetic from there.
It is. But I don't need to see 2 hours of Closer. Closer
Sure.
works in 5-minute chunks.
I liked
Yeah.
it.
My number 467 is a rare documentary. This is Film Worker from 2017. Starring.
I mean,
yes.
that's a very accessible, well-known documentary, but rare because it's on your list, is what you're
Correct.
saying.
Yes, rare for
Okay.
me. That's documentary, not a
Sure.
rare documentary like the Sweat. What's the one you talked about? Zach?
Sweatshop.
Not Sweatshop.
Yeah, the sweatshop, right?
The Sweatshop.
The Sweatshop. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
that is a rare documentary. This is a.
Kyle, you should absolutely watch the Sweatshop, by the way. You would. I know you don't like documentaries
I've seen
that
it.
much, but okay, good.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
I saw it. Yeah. Both Zach and I had it on our Forgotten Films of 2000 and
Perfect.
whatever year it came out.
Did you bingo?
No, just because I rank mines by number of IMDb votes, and Sweatshop has like a couple hundred IMDb votes.
Sure.
So, but Film Worker is a documentary about Leon Vitali, and Leon Vitali was a up and coming actor in England who who was in Barry Lyndon, directed by Stanley Kubrick. I believe he plays like the child of the woman that Ryan O'Neal marries in that movie. And Leon Vitali became enamored with Kubrick and his filmmaking style and basically left acting to be his right-hand man for the next 30 years. So he worked on Eyes Wide Shut, he worked on Full Metal Jacket, worked on The Shining, and sort of became Kubrick's confidant as well as his sort of someone from to bounce ideas off of. They worked very closely together. So this is a movie both about the filmmaking of Kubrick and his style through the eyes of Leon Vitali, but also, because this came out in 2017, a movie about a man who dedicated 30 years of his life to another person, to serving them. And then what does he do now that this person has died 15 years ago? Like, what does Leon Vitali's life mean now that Kubrick is no longer here? And so it's a really interesting portrait of both Kubrick and of Leon Vitali.
Nice.
My number 466 is The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey, the first Hobbit movie, which definitely gets overshadowed by Lord of the Rings, and I understand that, and I agree. I think Lord of the Rings, all three of the Lord of the Rings movies are better, and that's why all three of them appear before this movie does on my list. But I do think the Hobbit series has merit and is at least a good one-time watch, especially now that they're all out. You can stream them, you can binge them, you can just separate them like they're television episodes. I think it will play better than waiting a year in between movies and then watching, 2.5, 3-hour movies in a theater. I think the home experience will do this series wonders for most people. And I think it's well made and good. And I'm proud to put it on my list.
I saw this movie in the theater,
Mm-hmm.
and I was turned off by the frame rates as well as just the drawing out of the story. And so I never saw the next two. So are you saying it's worth revisiting now?
Yeah, especially at home when you can pause it and come back to it. And they're long and they're going to draw the story out.
Mm-hmm.
But I think television does that all the time. And we just go on to the next episode. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Without even really thinking about it. As long as it stays halfway engaging, we continue to watch. And so I think that's why these will play better at home. Plus, you won't have the 48 frames per second annoying the crap out of you.
Yeah, that really bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
You don't. So that's not on the home release. It's not in that frame rate.
No,
Interesting.
because TVs can't play it at that rate.
They can't.
I mean, some of them can, but you'd have to watch it on like a computer monitor, I believe.
Okay.
So
Okay. Well, my number 466 is Palm Springs from 2020. This is the Andy Samberg, Kristen Milotti, J.K. Simmons film where they're stuck in a day, and every day the day repeats. Unlike Groundhog Day, though, there's two people stuck, and so they're stuck with each other basically. And I thought this movie was funny and interesting and clever and poignant, and it was a big win in 2020. And so Palm Springs, my 466.
James, was it just you and me that reviewed Palm Springs? Was Zach not on the? Was Zach still away when we talked about that?
I don't remember.
What I like about that episode, James, is you and I decided that we would do the review in 3 parts. And part 1 was the completely no spoiler version where we didn't even mention that it was a Groundhog Day style movie. So we're just like, yeah, this is an interesting movie. And then part 2 was like, okay, now we can mention it's Groundhog Day, but leave it at that. And then the third part was actual spoilers. And it seemed like the most convoluted way to review a movie at the time. But I kind of want to go back and listen to it because it seemed like it was a lot of fun too.
Part 4, you reveal the cast.
Yeah.
Right.
6, the runtime.
It was something.
It's like a Hobbit movie.
It just keeps going.
Yeah. Drag it out.
My number 466 is a movie I discussed on our Forgotten Films of 2005, Good Night and Good Luck. This is directed by George Clooney and starring David Strathairn. In this movie, David Strathairn is playing Edward R. Murrow and is the true story about him investigating Joseph McCarthy and his witch hunts from the 50s. This is a fun period piece as well as a fun procedural about how news programs were made back in the 50s and worth checking out.
Nice. My number 465 is the horror movie A Cabin in the Woods, which I enjoy.
I like this one.
It has a little bit of a twist to it that I won't spoil for those of you that have not seen it, but just even if you don't like horror, I mean, there's definitely like horror elements to it. So if you absolutely hate horror movies, you should probably pass on this. But if you're like a casual fan, then you should definitely check this one out because the movie goes places and it's a fun horror movie, I'll say. It has unexpected twists and turns and a great cast. Another cast that you kind of look back on it and you're like, wow, all those people were in this. I didn't remember that.
Who's in it?
Chris Hemsworth.
Chris Hemsworth's in it. Kristen Connolly's in it. Bradley Whitford is in it. Remember that guy? From, that show about the president?
The West Wing.
That Aaron Sorkin directed. Yeah. The West Wing. And others.
Cool.
It's a movie where it seems like it's going to be a bad conventional 2000 style, even though it came out like 2013, and then it changes and it becomes so much better than,
and then you realize that's intentional. Like it's intentionally bad.
Yes.
I like that about it.
My 465 is Luca, the latest Pixar. Latest, it came after Soul, right?
Yeah, it's the most recent.
Yeah, most recent Pixar film. I just was utterly charmed by this movie. I really liked it a lot. We talked about it recently, so I don't need to go into it. But Luca, my 465.
My 465 is a Michael Mann film from 2004. This is Collateral, starring Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx. Jamie Foxx plays a cab driver who picks up Tom Cruise and realizes that he is driving Tom Cruise to perform assassinations and is trying to deal with being in that kind of sucked into that world of crime. This is a understated Tom Cruise performance. He was making this between Mission Impossible films. I don't know what else he makes anymore besides Mission Impossible, but if you want to see Tom Cruise still playing not a version of himself, but acting, I would check out Collateral. Not that he doesn't act in Mission Impossible. I like Mission Impossible movies a lot. I'm not trying to dig into Tom Cruise, but he's not doing any Like Mission Impossible, you see Tom Cruise because you want to see him perform crazy stunts, not because he's being an amazing actor. Collateral, he is still at least bringing 100% to the acting game. Where with Mission
Are you
Impossible,
saying he phones it in the Mission Impossible movies?
I'm saying that his performance is less about the emotions he's trying to get across and more about the
Stunts.
action and tension he's trying to get across. I'm just saying
Hold
he's
on.
a different kind of actor in Mission Impossible movies than he is
Do
in
you
something
think
Collateral.
a different actor would elevate the role in the Mission Impossible movies? I think he's giving exactly what that role needs.
Exactly. That's no, I'm not saying that he's wrong for that movie. I'm just saying, like, if you compare amazing acting performances, Mission Impossible movies, which I love, are not amazing Tom Cruise acting performances. If I was going to rank Tom Cruise movies by acting, I would not put Mission Impossible as high as other movies. But that's fine.
But you're saying he's capable of much more than what he puts into the Mission Impossible movies.
I think he was. I'm not sure now if he could do more. He wants to do more than that. But definitely, like in 2004,
you want to see him cry, maybe like scream out into the heavens.
Yeah. Yes. I need more rain. I need more of him bearing his soul. I need more "Show Me the Money" in Mission Impossible. So. This became a unintended dig on his Mission Impossible acting abilities, which I think he's right. The perfect role, perfect actor for those movies. He's doing exactly what he needs to do.
He's
to
a
make those
much
movies
better
exciting.
fighter pilot than he is a spy. I think we can all agree.
Oh yeah.
Oh, can I make a admission about my list real quick that relates to this?
Sure.
Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol and Mission Impossible Rogue Nation do not appear on my top 500 list.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason is because I don't remember them separately.
Which is which.
And I didn't know where to put them. Although both of them I like enough to be on the top 500. I just have to rewatch them in order to separate them in my mind.
I'm surprised you don't have Mission Impossible series in one slot.
Yeah. Surprised at that.
Well, because I
too.
don't. No, I only do one slot if I like all the movies equally.
Mm.
That's not true for Mission Impossible because of Mission Impossible 2 is weird.
It is weird. That is a kind way to describe that movie. Some might say bad.
I like Mission Impossible too, but yeah,
Is it weird?
it is weird. That's what I like about it. My number 464 is a movie I just watched. Well, not just watched, but within the last couple of months. It's from 2021, Coda, which is that awesome family drama / coming of age movie about a mostly deaf family with a hearing daughter, a daughter who can hear. And it's so funny and charming and fun to just do a little slice of life with these people. And I enjoy it. And it's totally watchable. Number 464.
Great choice.
464 for me is Tenet from 2020, Christopher Nolan film. I think I like this film better than you two did, but I just am up for a Christopher Nolan trippy, messing with time travel, time direction action film. And I thought this one was a lot of fun, and that's why it's on my list.
I wonder if one reason you liked it better than we did is because you saw it in the theater.
I honestly think the fact that I saw it earlier than you did and in the theater helped a lot.
Okay. Yep. James, you're shaking your head.
Yeah. It's garbage.
James, James, you are unaffected by circumstance when watching a film.
No, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say that I think that movie is messy in all the wrong ways. But I do want to rewatch it. I will give it another shot. And I'm sure I will understand more about it. And I still won't care in the end.
My number 464 is a 1970 film directed by Robert Altman. This is MASH, which seems kind of low for me, but here's where it is. This is starring Donald Sutherland, Elliot Gould, Tom Skerritt, Robert Duvall, Renee Auberginois. If you watch Star Trek 269, he played Odo. Amongst other people. It is a large cast, and it is about a group of Korean War field hospital soldiers, doctors, medics, etc., who have to use humor and pranks and just ways to kind of keep their sanity as they face the horrors of war that happening in Korea. This is definitely a dark comedy. It is funny. It is also tragic, and it's a movie that I think is much different than the TV show. But I haven't seen the TV show enough to compare them. But I imagine that this one is darker, and the TV show is a little bit more TV friendly.
And there's no Robert Altman style in the TV show at all.
It's more like sitcom style.
Yeah.
Okay. The TV show I remember being on cable all the time as a kid. It was just on endless reruns.
Sure.
My number 463 is from 2017. It's Get Out from Jordan Peele. Yeah, I mean, what to say about this movie? I feel like it should be higher, but I've only seen it the once in movie theaters, and I feel like I definitely need to give this one a rewatch, and it'll probably move up after the rewatch, I imagine. It feels like a movie that might get better upon each initial viewing. A nearly perfect movie for me. I don't love when the movie right at the end goes down to the basement. Everything from the basement on, I don't love. But maybe it'll play differently, knowing that that is a part of the movie. We'll see. 463, okay. Get Out.
Cool. My 463 is Jojo Rabbit, which came out in 2019, directed by Taika Waititi. I knew I was going to hate this film going into it because it's about a boy who has an imaginary friend who's Hitler. And I was just during the Holocaust, and I was just like not up for a goofy comedy where Hitler's a buddy. You know what I mean? And this film was that, but also definitely not that. And the definitely not that part was so great. And I understood why it was that too. Scarlett Johansson is fantastic in it.
Yep.
Thomasin McKenzie's fantastic. So this movie is something special, I think. Not one I'm going to watch too often, but it's got some pretty amazing scenes in it. So Jojo Rabbit definitely deserves to be on my list at 463.
Zach, you and I have Hitler bingoed because my number 463 is Downfall from 2004.
Oh, wow. The rare Hitler bingo.
Hitler bingo.
Bingo.
That is very fitting.
Yeah.
That is maybe the best use of that.
Waltz.
Yes, so far. Yeah. Downfall from 2004 is not a comedy.
A movie I considered.
Not that Jojo Rabbit's a straight comedy, but it definitely has comedic elements to it. Downfall is the true story of the waning days of the Third Reich, and kind of in the spring of April before World War II came to the end, before Nazi Germany finally fell. You have a great performance by Bruno Ganz as Hitler. And the reason I encountered this movie was because probably about a decade ago, this movie was memed a lot on YouTube. It has a famous scene where Hitler is learning that his plan, his final push to defeat the Allies has failed, and he orders everyone out of the bunker and then chews out his generals. And then obviously it's all in German, so that's been subtitled to be about everything from Facebook to like Xbox going down. So it was a very popular meme probably about a decade ago. So I thought, okay, I got to check out the movie that this meme is based on. And it is a really good movie. Worth checking out.
Agreed.
My number 462, another fairly recent movie, 2020. It's Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. Which when I watched it, it's a movie about two teenage girls. One is... I how do I describe this movie? She needs to get an abortion, but she's underage, so she has to move from one state to. She doesn't have to move. She has to go to another state in order to get it done. And her friend, who's also her cousin, goes with her kind of as moral support. And you're kind of on this adventure with these two girls to the big city. It's not like,
Wow, what an adventure.
I'm just saying, like,
big city for the first time.
They're far too young to be on their own in the city, essentially. And they're pushed into this situation because the place that she actually lives, she can't get the medical procedure that she needs to get in that place. And which is probably even more applicable today as far as like what's going on in Texas and stuff like that. I don't know. It's great. No matter which side of that decision you're on, I would say, like from a political or a moralistic perspective on it, I think it's worth seeing because it colors the heart of the people at the issue, right? And will give you not necessarily rationale, but at least perspective on why people make the decisions they do and why certain things are legal and why other places want them to be illegal. And it's really not a political movie. It's just about people in a situation that they did not expect to be in and the difficulty of working their ways through it. And it's got great, solid performances from two young actors and a steady directorial hand in Eliza Hittman. I'm looking forward to more from her. My number 462.
Nice. My 462 is Fences from 2016, directed by Denzel Washington, starring Denzel Washington and Viola Davis. This is a stage play turned into a film, and it's just intense from start to finish, but so well acted. I was just blown away by the acting and the writing in this film. It's very good. And yeah, I really was impacted by the performances in this. So Fences is my number 462.
My number 462 is a top 100 movie of Zach's, and I've seen all of Zach's top 100, hence why I've seen this movie. It is About Time from 2013.
Yes.
This is starring Domhnall Gleeson and Rachel McAdams, and on paper, this movie sounds cheesy because it is a time travel romance comedy where Rachel McAdams and Domhnall Gleeson have a meet cute. Doesn't quite go as well as Domhnall Gleeson wants it to, but then he learns that he has the power to travel through time, specifically through time in his own life. He can't just travel through whenever. So he keeps essentially reliving this date they had with Rachel McAdams, trying to bond a stronger connection. And it's so much better than that, though, just because Rachel McAdams and Domhnall Gleeson have such chemistry. It's such a sweet tale. It's not creepy in that sense. And it's a very well told story and a take on the romantic comedy. I don't know, Zach, you want to add anything to this, but it's a movie that surprised me. When I read about what it was about, I was like, okay, this will be fine. And it was better than it should be, the theme of this list.
It's a film that just missed my top 100 in the former iteration, but in my top 500, it is now my number 100.
Perfect.
My number 461, the previously mentioned Soul from 2020. Don't have much to add other than I love the music to this movie. It's not since La La Land have I listened to a soundtrack more than I have to the Trent Reznor score of Soul. Love it.
All right. We racked up another bingo.
Mm-hmm.
My 461 is Sorry to Bother You from 2018. It's directed and written by Boots Riley, starring Lakeith Stanfield and Tessa Thompson. I don't recommend this movie to anyone. You can go see it if you want, but I did not recommend it because it's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's a crazy movie, and but it's super interesting, but it's crazy.
Another messy movie.
Yeah, but I'm going to take James' quote and say this is messy in the right kind of way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Sorry to Bother You 461.
My number 461 is from 1968. This is Rosemary's Baby, directed by Roman Polanski, starring Mia Farrow and John Cassavetes. In this movie, John Cassavetes plays a struggling actor, and Mia Farrow is his wife who kind of stays at home. She ends up getting pregnant and starts suspecting that there is something weird going on with her pregnancy and with the people who live in her apartment. This is a movie that, I don't know, it can be spoiled. Maybe I don't know how much people know about it. It was a movie that was spoiled for me because when I rented it, I read the back of the DVD case and it laid out exactly what's happening in the movie. And then you watch the movie and you realize that this is a gaslighting movie and that there is mystery to it and that you shouldn't know the ending necessarily. So if you can go in without knowing the ending, I would say avoid it.
Cool. My number 460 is First Cow.
Oh, yeah.
2019. Recently rewatched this one after watching it for the first time. I think Kyle and I talked about this one
We did.
one point.
Yeah.
And so good. Kelly Reichardt, I believe.
Mhm.
Yes, Kelly Reichardt, director of another movie that I enjoy quite a bit, Meek's Cutoff. I mean, this is a vibe film too. I mean, it's set not in Oh, I'm looking at no. I am. Oh, right. I forget. There's a rapper to this movie. Like there's a beginning in it. Zach, have you seen First Cow?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I liked it a lot.
It's great. I don't know what to say about it, but yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. I don't know what to say about this movie. I already talked about it. Go look at the episode where Kyle and I talked about First Cow.
Nice.
It's one of my favorite films of
All
last
right,
year.
That's awesome. My 460 is Mirror by Andrei Tarkovsky.
Mhm.
And this film is difficult. It's a difficult watch. But for me, I found it very worthwhile or rewarding, more likely. It's basically a man who's dying is reminiscing about his life, his childhood, going through the war, that kind of thing, in Russia. And for me, the cinematography is so beautiful, bordering on like touching the transcendent. I mean, there are shots of just a man standing in a field of tall grass, and you see the grass like just billowing in the wind, and it lingers on that shot for a long, long time, giving you enough time to just take in how otherworldly yet earthly beautiful that is. It's just such a compelling, beautiful image to me, and the movie is filled with those kind of things. Like there's this one scene where a building catches on fire, and the slow, steady control of the camera as it's giving you more and more of what's happening, and also the use of mirrors in the film. All of it, I find to be so beautiful and compelling, even for such a challenging film. And so that's why Mirror by Tarkovsky is my 460.
Sorry, I fell asleep as you reminded me about that movie.
Yeah, I bet.
I did not care for Mirror, but I'm glad that you got something out of it.
Yeah.
My number 460 is another bingo. This is The Bridge Over the River Kwai, previously mentioned by
Ooh.
Zach.
Great.
And yeah, you hit all the highlights of this one, a POW film about British excellence. We'll put it that way.
All right. My number 459 is Frances Ha from 2012, directed by Noah Baumbach, starring Greta Gerwig, amongst others. And yeah, I mean, this is a Noah Baumbach film for sure. I mean, it's another vibe. So many vibe movies on my list this week. It's a good drama with a strong central performance. It's funny, charming. It's got a black and white aesthetic, so it's interesting to watch. And if you weren't already in love with Greta Gerwig, you probably will be by the end of this one. Frances Ha.
Nice. My 459 is Missing from 1982. It's a film starring Jack Lemmon and Sissy Spacek that I talked about this year in a Last 10 Top 10. I feel like I kind of discovered this film and I really liked it. It's a very good kind of mystery drama about a American writer who disappears during a Chilean coup d'etat, and his wife and his father, who are very different people, are working together to try to find him. And it's a political film, very much on its face, and it's really, really good. So Missing is my 459.
My 459 is a 2008 film directed by David Mamet, and this is Red Belt, starring Chiwetel Ejiofor. Plays Elijah 4. No, not Chiwetel Elijah 4. Chiwetel Ejiofor. Chiwetel Elijah 4. Oh my goodness.
Absolutely, Kyle, absolutely correct. You nailed it.
Thank you. I didn't even practice that. I just was like, I can do this. I believe in myself.
I love it.
I think I can.
I'm so glad Red Belt's on your list.
Yeah.
I love Red Belt.
This is a movie I need to see again because Chiwetel Elijah 4. I'm just gonna mute James. Where's mute on Zoom over here? So this movie came out. Now you just threw me off. This movie came out right around the same time I started actually practicing jujitsu. This is a movie about the aforementioned actor being a jujitsu instructor, Chiwetel Elijah 4. I'm ready just to move on. Anyway, I need to see this movie again because at the time I was expecting like a jujitsu fight movie.
Karate Kid.
Yes,
yeah.
and this is not that movie. This is a jujitsu drama movie. And I didn't know a lot about jujitsu at the time that I saw the movie either. So now that I've had some distance from the movie, I've progressed much more within the world of jujitsu, my own skills and style at it. I would love to watch this movie again and see if I get something different out of it. I also have a better appreciation for David Mamet and know what to expect from it now versus when I saw it then. So I see this movie perchance rising to be in a higher spot sometime in the future.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah, Red Belt, when you hear MMA movie, which is what people dub it as, you assume it's like a very specific thing, and then you watch Red Belt and you're like, this is a movie that happens to have MMA in it. That's
exactly
where it begins and ends.
Yep.
For sure. Number 458 for me is from 2017, Phantom Thread, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, starring Daniel Day-Lewis, Leslie Manville, and Vicky Creeps, I believe is how you say it. And it's lesser Paul Thomas Anderson, but still amazing because most of his movies are, for sure. I mean, lesser Paul Thomas Anderson is still a top 500 movie for me, for sure. And it's one I need to rewatch because I doubt this will ever break like a top 100 or anything, but I'm sure it would creep up the list if I saw it again, because Paul Thomas Anderson movies are worth 2 watches at minimum for each of them, I would say. And so definitely need to get that quota in for Phantom Thread.
Can you believe it is my number 30?
30? You liked it that much?
Yeah.
How many times have you seen it?
Yeah, it's 4.
Really? You've watched that movie 4 times?
That's really high.
I really am enamored by that movie. Yeah, it's my number 30. Okay, my number 458, which I like a lot less than Phantom Thread, but still like quite a bit, is Zack Snyder's Justice League from 2021. I wouldn't have put Justice League on here, but Zack Snyder's Justice League, I think, hit the right note for me. For me, this is a fun superhero movie, and I'm down for that. So I enjoyed this one a lot more than I was expecting to. And it's 4 hours. So there was a lot to love.
This is why I absolutely cannot read what Zach's going to like and what he's not going to like, because I can't believe this movie is on your top 500.
Yeah.
Really? It's a fun superhero movie.
Nobody has ever described any Zack Snyder movie as fun. That's for sure. None of them.
You get to see Batman, talking to people.
Batman talking to people.
Right. When I think about Batman,
Superman
I can't wait for his conversations.
I mean, I have a high tolerance for these types of things, right? And I got about an hour into it and I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot watch this anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense. You haven't seen the film. I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying, you're saying what? When does it get good? Hour 3 or 3.5? How much do I have to suffer
when does it
before
hit
it gets
its apex? When does it hit its apex?
At what point am I going to be watching it and think this was worth my time? That's what I want to know.
I would say by the second epilogue, you'll be invested.
James, it's hard to know until you watch the film what your apex was.
So you're saying I have to watch all of it?
That's not what I'm saying. But you have experienced less than 25% of the film.
Because the 25% I saw was like borderline insufferable.
Sure.
Because I don't quit movies. I don't quit movies halfway often, and that one I have not come back to.
Obviously, you quit movies quarter way, no problem.
James, is your favorite part of movies normally the first quarter?
No. I just know what that guy can do. And so if you're telling me he can do something for the very first time, turn around the tone of a movie a quarter of the way through, then I will watch more. But so far, that tone was not doing anything for me, for sure.
Oh, well, that's okay.
All right.
Maybe you'll like my 457 better.
Maybe.
James, I found Justice League surprisingly watchable.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's maybe worth giving it a shot. But
you mean the Zack Snyder version or the...
Yeah, the Zack Snyder. I've never seen the other version, the Whedon.
Okay.
The Zack Snyder version is way better than the original.
You're going to get a ton of CG magic hour, though. Like that sun is shining in that camera.
You hate magic
every scene.
I forgot that was your hang up about that, Kyle.
No, magic hour's not my hang up. The fact that every outdoor scene in that movie during the day is the sun
beautiful.
Is either setting or rising directly in the camera, and the characters are constantly backlit. I was like, find a different aesthetic, Zack Snyder.
That's what I'm talking about. Like an hour in, there was nothing new. This was normal Zack Snyder wankery for sure.
Wankery. how British of us. All right. We're getting bogged down. I'm going to push this along to a much lighter film than Zack Snyder's Justice League. And this is The Hunt from 2012. Directed by Thomas Vinterberg.
Oh
my goodness.
Light fare.
Light fare.
Wow.
This is starring Mads Mikkelsen. What was the movie they did about drinking teachers that they recently? Another round. Yep. So this is another pairing of theirs. Mads Mikkelsen plays a school teacher who gets falsely accused of sexual abuse by one of his students and then has to deal with the fallout around that, both within his job, his community, and his kind of path to redemption. It is not a light movie. It is not a fun movie, but it is a incredibly well acted and well told story that if you know what you're getting into, it's worth seeing. There's obviously nothing gross happens because nothing gross actually happens in the movie. It's just accusations, but it's still a uncomfortable movie in that sense.
I agree. It's an uncomfortable movie. My episode, I like it too, but it's a harsh movie.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Back at it.
Movie number 457 on my list is from 2003. It's a documentary called Overnight, which I feel like we've recently discussed in the last year or so. But it's about the director of Boondock Saints. It kind of films his life in the lead up to the making of that movie. And it also gives you a little bit of a taste for what the mid 90s, early 90s independent film boom felt like, to kind of like be in the middle of that whirlwind. It's really good. And Troy Duffy is an interesting documentary subject. My number 457.
It's a really good documentary.
It's on my watch list.
My 457 is Come and See from 1985.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If you are the type of person that wants to see all of the like masterpieces about war, or maybe like the horrors of war, this is maybe the one that you might have missed. Most likely to have missed, but I would absolutely consider it in the horrors of war canon. Like Full Metal Jacket and Platoon and all those. You really need to see Come and See. It's about, a young boy who's kind of finds himself at the front lines in World War II and in Russia, I believe, Soviet Union.
Belarus.
Was it? Yeah. There you go. And man, it's intense and well shot and awful. But like the things he experiences are awful. But I think it's a very compelling movie that's worthwhile. And I enjoyed it quite a bit. It's Come and See.
It's awful in like a child peril kind of way, right?
No, not so much child peril.
Okay.
Yeah, just the horrors of war.
There are some war movies that will take two sides of a conflict and try and say like, look, these are just kids fighting each other. There's really not much that much different about them besides the fact that they're on different sides of a battle line. Come and See is not that movie. This movie is clearly saying like these people who are causing these atrocities are evil and bad people. Like it does not try and humanize the other side whatsoever.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's intense, but it's good. My number 457 is a Zack Snyder film that is not Justice League. It is Watchmen from 2009. This is a movie that I saw when it came out. I had read the graphic novel, and I enjoyed this movie. It's not perfect. It's maybe a little too faithful to the graphic novel, but it has some touches of, I don't know, panache to it. It has some ways that make it unique, and it makes some change to the graphic novel, some that work, some that don't. It's a movie, though, that I think has slipped, in my opinion, just because my opinion of Zack Snyder has changed over time and has slipped too, and we just got done discussing him as a filmmaker. So it's a movie I want to rewatch and revisit and see, is this a good Zack Snyder movie before things are getting meh, or is this kind of what I expect from him? So that's why I just kind of slotted right here. It could get higher, could get lower.
I like Watchmen quite a bit. That's like a good example of where Zack Snyder's like cynical, overcranked, maximalist style works very well to me. For some reason, Justice League, I just can't stomach it. I don't know why. My number 456 is, speaking of good documentaries, Honeyland from just a few years ago.
Oh, yeah.
So good. Probably should be higher because it's such a unique movie. And it's a strange documentary in that you'll swear this is a narrative movie. Like, it's just a perfectly told story. I'm reading on Wikipedia right now that they filmed 400 hours of footage for this documentary, which makes sense why they told such a perfect story, because they had footage of her brushing her teeth 10 times over, I'm sure. It was it's really good, and everybody should check it out, because I think it's entertaining and enlightening as well. My number 456.
That's awesome. Great film. My 456 is Woman in the Dunes from 1964. I feel like it's been discussed relatively recently and often on this podcast, so I won't go too much into it, but it's kind of a trippy film about a guy that gets lured and trapped in a big sand pit on the beach, and he can't get out for some reason. And there's people on the top that are keeping him in, and a woman in the bottom that is, confusing for him. And it's just a very, very good film. So Woman in the Dunes, 456.
Megan and I were talking the other day, or maybe a week ago, and she said, I don't know how it came up, but she was like, I'm intrigued by that Woman in the Dunes movie you and Zach have talked about. She's like, I don't know if I want to actually see it, but the way you guys talk about it makes it sound like it's something interesting and worth seeing.
Megan, do you want me to cut like an 8-minute version of it so you could just kind of, inject it into your veins?
Just sand rolling down hills for 8 minutes. Yeah, definitely. All right, my number 456 is Spider-Man from 2002, directed by Sam Raimi. Probably should be higher, but I've not seen this movie in a long time. I'm actually waiting for like a 4K release of it because I really want to revisit this and Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 3, I'll probably watch it again, but I really don't need to revisit it. But I remember Spider-Man being a good superhero movie. An interesting one, kind of pre-MCU. I think it'd be interesting to kind of see what those pre-MCU movies look like, because so much of our superhero movies now are shaped by MCU, whether they are Marvel or not. Zach, also have a memory of seeing this in the theater with you. I can't tell you much more about it, but I think we had the theater to ourselves. We were with a group of friends, but it was just us in the theater. There was maybe one other couple in there, and I felt bad for them because we were having a good time watching this movie in the theater.
Yeah.
Were you like throwing popcorn up in the air or something? What?
No, but we were definitely like talking and laughing and cracking jokes and like treating that theater like our personal living room.
You were being obnoxious.
Upon retrospect, yes, we were being obnoxious.
Okay.
But
I understand.
when we got there, we had the theater to ourselves, and it was like minutes before the movie started, these people walked in. So we had already established.
It's hard to let go.
Yeah, this is our space. We assume no one else is going to be in there with us. So it's really their fault.
Yeah.
My number 455 is the comedy from 1991 titled Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, which is the sequel to Bill and Ted, which Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, rather, which is higher on my list. I don't remember exactly where, but pretty high. But I really enjoy Bogus Journey as well. It's evidently a parody of sorts of The Seventh Seal, the Ingmar Bergman movie that I have not seen. Have you guys seen The Seventh Seal?
It is.
Would you agree?
Yeah, it is.
That's generally.
Well, no, not generally. Just the character of death is from The Seventh Seal.
Gotcha. But the rest of the format isn't really a parody of The Seventh Seal.
When they challenge him to a game, and they play like all these different wacky
Battleship
games
and things. That's a
So
parody.
like 30% of the movie is.
In The Seventh Seal, they play chess.
Yeah.
Cool.
But there's no clone robots in Seventh Seal.
Okay. Good to know. I like this movie. If you'd like to hear more about what I think about it and what Zach thinks about it, we did a commentary for Patreon for this movie. And so become a patron and scroll way down to the bottom. And that's where you'll find our commentary for Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. It's pre-Kyle, so he's not on there, but Zach and I are. So check it out. My 455.
I love that movie.
I should have checked that out before I canceled Patreon. I didn't realize that you guys did that.
You should have. Okay, my 455 is Lilo and Stitch, the Disney animated cartoon. I saw this late in life recently, and I did not know what I was walking into. I thought I was coming into like just a strange sci-fi Disney movie. What I got though was a really heartfelt story of loss and trying to hold it all together, and sisters. I mean, like, Stitch is obviously a big part of this film, but I was just completely drawn in by the older sister, younger sister characters who are just doing their best to survive, and all the stress and sadness on their shoulders was way more than I expected from this film, and it elevated it, and I found it very affecting, and that's why Lilo and Stitch is 455.
Hawaiian Roller Coaster is also an underrated Disney song.
Yeah, that gets a lot of play in my house.
Yeah, it's good. My number 455 is Super 8 from 2011, directed by J.J. Abrams. This is J.J. Abrams' attempt on making a Spielberg-style film where it's about a group of kids in the late 70s who like making movies together, who kind of are latchkey kids living in an industrial town who get involved in a alien presence within their town. It's a fun movie. It's definitely a nostalgia watch because it's going for that Spielberg 70s, 80s style. But it's also a bellwether of where J.J. Abrams is going to take us as a director because he hasn't really done much besides hitting those nostalgia points ever since. But I think this is one of his better attempts at going for that nostalgia feel.
Nice. My number 454 is Just Mercy, which is a drama from just a few years ago, starring Michael B. Jordan and Jamie Foxx, amongst others. And it's a true story about a lawyer who is trying to free Jamie Foxx, who has been convicted of a crime that he claims he didn't commit. And so it's a lot about the appeal process and a bunch of other legal maneuverings. And it's a good drama for sure with some great performances. And I enjoyed it. Just Mercy, 454.
Nice. My 454 is a movie I'm not sure has been mentioned on the podcast before. It's called The Gods Must Be Crazy from 1980. And this is, I think, a really interesting film. I really need to rewatch it. It's a fictional tale where a small plane pilot throws a Coke bottle out the window, and it lands on the ground in front of a bushman in Africa. And he has never seen anything of modern technology. And so this Coke bottle that falls from the sky is just completely foreign to him. Takes it back to his village. They, try to figure out what it is, what it's used for. And then they start fighting about it. Eventually he decides this thing is a curse and he needs to return it to the gods. And then he starts encountering more and more of modern civilization. The movie is super interesting. The central character is incredibly charismatic and likable. And I remember liking the sequel to this, The Gods Must Be Crazy 2, a lot as well. But yeah, this is a movie I definitely am excited to revisit. The Gods Must Be Crazy.
I used to watch that movie all the time as a kid, and it's my number 255 on my list as well.
Nice. Very cool.
Is there a chance this movie has not aged well at all? Like on his portrayal of African bush people?
I think it actually, from my memory, it's been a while for sure. But from my memory, I think it plays at the truth of the matter as opposed to, ridiculing people for not being up on modern technology. You know what I mean? It's just, they've never seen a bottle before and it falls out of the sky. And they're like, they come up with all kinds of unique ways to use the bottle in ways where like people who just drink out of it and throw it away don't think about the utility of a glass bottle. And so I don't think the movie makes fun of Aboriginal people. I think that's where the line would be crossed, but it's been a while. Maybe there's something in there that I don't remember.
James, that's a great defense.
Sure.
That's I get a little applause in there. That's actually very well done. All right, I saw the movie a long time ago. I remember liking it, but I would like to revisit it too. Zach, maybe you and I should do a co-watch on that.
I mean, the part
we'll watch Red Belt and The Gods Must Be Crazy.
There's a double feature. The part that maybe won't age well, and not even from like a societal acceptance kind of way, is probably the love story between the guy and the girl. It's probably plays a little cheesy, but that's just because they made it in the 80s.
Yeah. My number 454 is another bingo, which is crazy. This is Honeyland from 2019.
Nice.
I was impressed by this movie too, about the narrative it tells about beekeepers in, I don't know, did we ever say, was it Greece or what part of Europe
Macedonia.
was it? Macedonia. If I had one possible critique of this movie, like James said, this is, or maybe Zach said, this is 400 hours of footage they used to make a 90-minute documentary. And apparently it was also filmed over multiple years. So I do wonder, obviously everything that happens in the movie happens, but I wonder how much of it was the filmmakers stitching together a narrative with 400 hours of film, where they may be telling a story that wasn't actually there. That's what I want to know. That's my only hang up as I learned about the history, the production behind this movie is, are we seeing, all documentaries tell a story, whether they're, going for the truth or not. Are we seeing what actually happened, or are we just seeing a story that they compiled out of, multiple years of footage?
I mean, I think the answer is right there. You're seeing a story. You can't take 400 hours and boil it down to 90 minutes and cut and not expect to have cut out the things that you don't personally find interesting or important to the story you're going to tell. So absolutely, there's a reality not being told in the 90-minute version of 400 hours of footage. But whether there's truth in the presentation as a whole, it feels genuine to me. The only person that could answer that is the other person, the person being filmed. And I haven't heard complaints, but she's not talking.
She's not on Twitter.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
Tilzi Muratova is not common on social media, so I've been trying to get her to tweet more about it, but
I want to see the 400-hour cut.
I mean, it's going to be a lot of footage of her walking up and down mountains.
Right.
Like, you can definitely fast forward good chunks of that.
I imagine that's true. My number 453 is 1917, which is a war movie that came out a few years ago, directed by Sam Mendes. Kyle hates this movie because it's a one-shot movie, but
no, I don't hate it.
Tries to fool you into thinking it was really filmed in one shot, but really it wasn't.
Jerks.
They stitched it together.
And it's a fakey too.
It's a fake oneer. Yep.
Oh, and the seams,
all the seams, all the people walking in front of the frame.
Just like watching Blind Date all over again.
So yeah, it's recent, so I'm sure most people listening to this know about this movie. And if you haven't, check it out. Why not?
All right, I'm going to say one last thing on 1917, and then we can move on.
Okay.
The movie could have been, if the movie was a series of 10-minute oneers, I would have been fine with that. Like, it could have been the same movie about like putting you in their boots and give you that visceral experience without having to try and stitch together every single moment. I think I would have enjoyed it more if I was getting a bunch of 10-minute oneers versus one long oneer.
But you are basically getting a bunch of 10-minute oneers. It's just they tried to stitch them together.
But they don't need to.
I mean, if you look at the pacing of the movie, it's obviously not in real time because it goes from night to day to night again. Yeah. In fact, there is a cut in the movie, right? Because he falls asleep at night.
He falls asleep. Well, he falls asleep on a truck, or he falls asleep. Yes, you're right. He falls asleep at night. And then there's a truck ride, which would have taken hours, which they condensed to 5 minutes because it's a movie, obviously.
So it's basically a tour because the first half of the movie happens in the second half of the movie. It's not a oneer. It's a tour.
But it could have been a 12er, and I would have been fine with that.
But since it's a tour, you weren't fine with it.
It seemed unnecessary. I didn't get anything more out of the movie because we were stitching all these intense scenes together. It could have just been a series of long, intense scenes, and it would have been just as good, if not better, in my esteem.
I mean, I would be very curious to watch this with you and have you count the seams and then later tell you that there's like
12 scenes.
No, like 4 times more than you counted.
Well,
and that you just didn't see those.
You're talking about the seams?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, of course there's I didn't see every single seam. I'm not like some genius about that. But it bothers me enough where they do stand out.
There were a couple that I could pinpoint to, but I think the presentation is intentionally the way it is, and
of course it's intentional.
You would agree. You would agree. I'm not saying
accidentally wandered into a water.
I'm not saying you disagree with that. I'm saying like from an artistic perspective, I think it was a good choice.
Yeah.
I guess is where we differ. So, Zach,
Kyle, you should just go see Russian Ark. You'll like it way more than 1917
because they actually did it, right?
No, I like Russian Ark. Yeah, that's a real oneer, and it's great. Victoria, stupid oneer.
All right. Well, hopefully you guys have gotten all of your negative energy out of your system. Before I mention my 453, The Lion King from 2019.
Oh my gosh. Zach, come on. This is worse than the Zack Snyder thing.
All right, so I'll just go my 453.
As a film lover, I saw this film and I just was totally taken by it. I think it is absolutely beautiful and an accomplishment. I thought it was so fun to see a movie that I absolutely loved, the original Lion King, translated into this realistic setting, and I just can't believe they can do this now. I mean, you look at it and it looks so real, but it's still the same story. I loved it. Most movies, I don't know what I rate a movie until I reflect on it and kind of like wait a day or two and really think about what I think about it. This movie, the credits were rolling. I was like, oh, that's a 5 out of 5. That's easy. So this movie, I was really impressed by.
Zach is like a
take
pro
it you guys
who
didn't
likes
like the
shiny
film.
things. He's like, this one's extra shiny, 5 stars.
That's hard.
I do like shiny things.
I mean, I like some shiny things too, for sure. But Lion King is like the definition of a movie that's not needed, I would say.
My son, who likes 1994 cartoon Lion King, was bored by 2019 Lion King, which you say is the exact same movie. So if they're the exact same movie and he liked one and was bored by the other, what are the differences? What's the one difference between the two? Oh, the shiny, fakey lions.
Well, I'll say 2 things. I didn't say they're the exact same story,
but they are
and
the
2,
exact same story. You know, I believe you just said they made the exact movie with realistic looking animals.
I don't think I used the word exact. I just said the same story.
I'm definitely going to listen back to this. Hold on. I'm marking this down.
Right now.
Right now. What time is this? All right. I'm going to look back and listen to it. I cannot wait to make a YouTube video, not YouTube, Instagram video about this.
I'm so excited, Kyle. Plus, I like to form my own opinions on a movie, not based on if a 4-year-old was bored watching it. That's just how I do it. I don't know your criteria for how you enjoy movies.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, every movie I watch, I have Galen watch with me, and I'm like, what do you think about that one? I mean, so like he found Come and See incredibly intense, so that's why I also found it intense.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's great.
All right.
You can tell we are 3 hours into this. This is getting a little off the rails.
For sure.
I'm going to say I'm kind of sad we're getting close to the end because I'm having a lot of fun, but I also know we can't do this in our 3 hours.
There's going to be 50 more next week.
I know. I can't wait. My number 453 is Hard Boiled from 1992, directed by John Woo, starring Chow Yun-fat and Tony Leung. Chow Yun-fat plays a cop who teams up with Tony Leung, who plays an undercover cop who's working in a gang to take down this gang. And it is a fun action movie. It is a strong John Woo showing. This is a movie where they have shootouts and anything that gets hit by a bullet explodes. There's a shootout in a hospital and they're shooting like windows, window framing, tissue boxes, pharmaceutical supplies, everything is exploding constantly. Just like it's great. At one point Chow Yun-fat has to rescue a baby and has a baby strapped to the front of him during the shootout too, which we've seen. Fast and Furious 8 did its own take on that. This is a worthy action film to check out from Hong Kong, directed by John Woo.
Yeah, if you're into the history of action movies, I think Hard Boiled has to make your list of must-watches for sure.
Has to, yeah.
My number, what are we on? 452 is Monos, Monos. I don't think either of you have seen it, but you should. It's really good. It's set in Colombia. It's about these teenagers who are tasked. They're like teenage soldiers in a like militaristic renegade group, I guess, like anti-government group. And they are tasked with holding captive a British reporter up in the mountains in Colombia. And they're told by their superiors to just wait with her and like treat her well. Not well, but don't mistreat her and protect her and don't let her go. And they it's like very Lord of the Flies, because these kids are like from ages 13 to like maybe 17 or 18. And there's this weird power structure amongst the kids, and they're just left to their own devices with this British reporter who's female, who's probably in her like early 30s, and the teenagers are in charge in this scenario. And it's really good. Some tough subject matter because it's younger people, and the hardships of literally living in the mountains of Colombia with no shelter or anything like that. Like they aren't given rations. They just have to survive up there. And it's really good. Just from a couple years ago. It's my number 452. Check it out. Monos.
I definitely need to see that.
Yes.
But I will get to it.
Fairly
for
short.
Sure.
103 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. My 452 is from 2006. It is The Fall.
Oh yeah.
Have you guys seen this?
I have.
The Fall, maybe.
Is it?
This is such a creative film. It's basically told in the wrapper of there's a man in a hospital in the 1920s, and there's a little girl in the same hospital who broke her arm, and the man is trying to steal morphine from the hospital, and the girl keeps like getting in his way, and so he's telling her a story basically as he's trying to steal the morphine to distract her or whatever. And then it keeps cutting to the story he's telling, which is an incredibly epic, mythical story with like heroes. And it's kind of like Princess Bride, and it's kind of like Baron Munchausen. And the cinematography is amazing. It does really clever thing with transitions and stuff like that. It's just a completely creative visual feast of a film. And if you haven't seen The Fall, go watch a trailer or something and kind of intrigue yourself, because this is just a rare gem of a movie that there are just so few of. It'll kind of remind you of Terry Gilliam or Spike Jonze. I don't know what it'll remind you of, but it's good. The Fall is my 452.
Yeah, that's a great setup for that movie. What's the name of the director? He's a one name.
Tarsum Singh.
Tarsum?
Yeah.
Okay. And who's the actor?
He directed The Cell, if that intrigues you, James.
With Jennifer Lopez?
Yeah.
Yep. I do like that movie, but I have not seen The Fall.
Okay.
It's not James McAvoy. Who's the actor in The Fall? I thought was it someone famous?
That's
Lee Pace.
That's pre-McAvoy for
Lee
sure.
Pace. Okay. All right. My number 452 is another documentary. This film is not yet rated, from 2006. Have you guys seen this movie? This documentary?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a documentary about the MPAA and specifically how they rate movies and the whole process behind that, and especially focusing on their inconsistencies and how they rate violence versus sex. So if you're interested in kind of the movie business and the MPAA, this is worth checking out. The irony of this movie is it is rated NC-17 because it shows scenes that got cut from movies, or it shows examples of like how this movie is rated one and this movie is rated another, and because it shows those scenes from those movies, it got an NC-17 movie, which I also think is maybe the MPAA trying to bury a movie about them so that no one could see it. So I think there's some behind the scenes shenanigans going on there, but that's a problem when you make a movie about a company or an organization that can also have an effect on your movie. You can get buried like that. So I don't think a lot of people have seen it because it's NC-17, but it's worth checking out.
Nice. My number 451, the last movie I'm going to talk about for this week. Don't ask me to talk about it anymore because this is it. It's Marriage Story, which is a Noah Baumbach movie. Second time in this collection of films he's been mentioned. It stars Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson. And it's fairly recent, so you probably have heard of it at minimum. And it's the story of a relationship, a marriage, so to speak, and the trials and tribulations of these two characters amidst their marital issues. And if you like great dramas and relationship movies, then this is one of them. My number 451.
Why isn't it called Divorce Story? It's really not about a marriage.
I don't know.
It is about a marriage. You need a marriage before you have divorce.
That's true, but it's about the divorce.
It's pretty much all takes place post. No, they're still married. They just haven't gotten the divorce yet, right?
Yeah.
So they're still married.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit of a subversion. I mean, I'm looking at the poster right now. There's nothing about the poster that would make you believe that this is a story about divorce. Like it's 2 hours of divorce.
Yeah. I got what you're saying.
It's not like Kramer versus Kramer where they're battling it out.
It is.
It is that. It's just maybe not as...
I've never seen Kramer versus Kramer, so I was making an assumption there.
They're very similar. Okay. My number 451 is The Father, which is a movie we talked about on the show and fairly recently. So it's a 2020 movie with Anthony Hopkins and Olivia Colman, and it's awesome. And you can refer back to the episode where we talked about it if you want to know more, but it's great.
And my number 451, our final movie, is Spartacus from 1960, directed by Stanley Kubrick. This is a sword and sandal epic starring Kirk Douglas, and this is an epic. It is over 3 hours long. It is interesting to see Kubrick make a movie or attempt to make a movie within the studio system. This is the last movie he made under the guise of a major studio. After this, he pretty much became an independent filmmaker in the sense where he wanted complete control over all aspects of his movies. Obviously, still work with studios for distribution and things like that. But if you want to see Kubrick's take on a standard sword and sandal epic and within that studio system, definitely check out Spartacus. I've only seen this movie once. I want to see it again. I'm waiting for that 4K to drop back down to $10 again. So come on Amazon. Jeff Bezos, if you're listening, help a brother out.
He's definitely listening for sure.
He's definitely one of our listeners. Yep.
Guaranteed. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode 499 of the Cinereelists. One episode away from that magic hour number of 500. Don't forget, you can find this podcast on YouTube. Search Cinereelists, find the video version, watch us while you listen to us. You could also support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Cinereelists. Do that. Go hunt down Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. commentary all the way at the bottom. And we also did Toy. Was that what it was called? Toys with an S. Right. Yeah, we did a commentary for that as well. You can find it patreon.com/Cinereelists, as well as a bunch of after shows that are just waiting to be listened to. You can leave us an Apple Podcast review. We'd appreciate that. You can send us an email, heyguys@Cinereelists.com, or you can follow us on social media at Cinereelists on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, or you can follow me on my personal Twitter or Letterboxd account at YoJRB.
You can follow me on Twitter or Letterboxd at Shaban.
You can find me on Letterboxd at PeterSKB.
We will be back next week for the thrilling conclusion to part 2 of our two-part series. Right?
Part 2 of part 2 of our 2-part episode series.
That's what I said, right?
Nah, not quite.
I think I said it pretty much exactly like that, but a little more efficiently.
Another quibble is it's not a 2-part series. This has nothing to do with the 2-part series that came before it.
No,
but it's
they're
two-part
both
series.
Two two-parters, so it's a series of 2-parters.
But the only thing they have in common is that they're in 2 parts.
No,
exactly.
They are a series of 2-parters, but it's not a 2-part series.
Yes, it is, because
they're a series of 2-parters.
Because 497 and 498 are the first 2-part series, and then 499 and 500 is the second 2-part series. So it's part 1 of the series and part 2 of the series, and then part 1 of the series, and then you break it out from there. So, Zach, there's something called division, which I know is complicated, but we can break these down into smaller bits if we need to.
Your son is listening to this particular part of the podcast, and he's bored.
No, actually, he right now is watching Spartacus, so I can get a second take on it. So, how you doing? 2 hours ago? Don't fall asleep.
Thanks again for listening. If you've gotten this far, you're 3+ hours into a podcast where we talked about movies, so you're our kind of people. We'll see you guys next week for more of the same. Until then, keep it cinereal.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.